Jan,
Yes.
I'm going to send you an updated version of this report.
Okay.
But if you want to give me the ability to share my screen during this,
So
I'll just.
our clerk is driving. So
Okay.
Alicia, do you want to take that request? Can you email to Alicia? Do you have her email address?
Yeah, I can.
Okay.
I don't know if I have her email address right now, so hold on just a sec.
Let me email it to you right now.
But it looked like when I reviewed the thing today, that the categories on the expense side hadn't ported over correctly.
Okay.
So I
Are we
updated.
talking about the Excel sheet,
Yep.
Jacob? Because I've got the base Excel up, the last one I had. So if that's not right, I can.
It's the numbers are correct, but the categories were mislabeled. So I just updated the categories. So I'll send a new copy, but the numbers are correct.
Jake, if you'll
Okay,
actually send that to the mayor, because
Yep.
he's actually the one driving. So
Okay. So Jake, do you need the mayor's address?
It's just mayor at Hideout.
Mayor
Right?
at, yes.
Okay.
Hideoututah.gov.
You got it.
And Alicia, can you make Jake a co-host if he's not already?
yes.
Okay, so we've got Chris. So let's, I'll find out if Bob's planning to join. He hasn't said.
All right, Mayor, I just sent you that updated
Great,
file.
thank you, Jeff. All right, I'll close the one I opened and open the new one. So I don't get
Sorry about
confused.
that.
That's okay. Okay, I think we'll get started and hopefully I'll hear from Bob. Good evening, everyone. This is the Hideout Utah Town Council regular meeting and continued public hearings for April 14th, 2022. This meeting is an all electronic meeting with no anchor site per the no anchor site determination letter updated as of April 11th, 2022. I'm going to get the roll call. Oh, Carol Hazelton.
Here.
Thank you. Chris Byer.
Here.
Sherry Jacobs.
Here.
Sherry. Thank you. Ralph Severini. Here. Thank you. Bob Nailberg just texted. He's running a few minutes late, but he will be here as soon as we see him come in. We'll note it for the record. The next item is approval of the council minutes of January 13th, 2022. I reviewed them and found one minor mistake in the copy that I have, which I've spoken with Alicia about, and she's planning to correct. So that's the only issue I had, which is that she got my name twisted about. So she's fixing that. Any other comments from council?
None for me.
Thank you, Chris.
None for me.
Thank you, Carol.
Ditto. Yeah, ditto. I have
Okay.
one follow-up though.
So I have a motion, I need a motion to approve the minutes of January 13th, 2022 with the correction of the mayor's name on line 34.
So moved.
Who made that motion? I'm sorry.
Sherry.
Thanks, Sherry. Need a second?
Second,
Thank you, Ralph. All right, Chris,
Yes.
okay with minutes? Okay. Carol, okay with the minutes?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Ralph
yes.
and Sherry.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Minutes are approved. Bob is not going to be able to join tonight due to he's stuck flying. So we'll excuse him. As we all know, sometimes airline travel is somewhat unpredictable, and apparently it's unpredictable for him because he's stuck. So, okay. Next item is discussion of meetings follow-up items. So Ralph, I noticed you had one.
Yeah, I only had one. It was really, I think, where Chris had said something on page 5 regarding the square footage of structures for homes with requiring or, having sprinkler systems. And did we ever confirm that statement with Clinton Earings?
Yeah, it's 10,000 square feet.
Okay, so that was it. That was the one that I saw that we had to follow up on.
Unfortunately, the state chose to relax that, sadly. I wish they hadn't, but they have. And I've been trying to work with Wasatch Fire to see how we can work around it, but apparently, unless we get enough pushback at the legislature to review that, we're kind of stuck with it. We can encourage people to put fire suppression systems in their homes, but we can't require it. Okay. No more follow-up items. And the next item is a public hearing item on possible discussion and possible approval of a subdivision lot amendment to Hideout Canyon Lot 37.
And Mayor,
let me
it's
find that.
Thomas. I can walk you through this. And as you go to that report, you're fine to stay with that report if you want. If you want, you could go down to like the 3rd or 4th page if people wanted to see the visual while I maybe walk through some of the narrative. It
That's
may
probably
be
the easiest thing to
easier.
do,
Yep.
yeah.
If you go
Anything
just
we need
past
to figure out.
here,
Sorry, where
you
do you want
keep
to go,
going.
Thomas?
You were going the right direction. It'll be right after the TO report, and you may have to zoom out just a bit to get it all.
Yeah.
Great, thanks. So yeah, I'll walk through this. This is lot 37 of Hideout Canyon Phase 1. They're requesting an amendment to the subdivision. This is a lot that's approximately 44,225 square feet. There's some surrounding common land as well. It's zoned RSPA within the residential medium density pod. It's got a front yard setback and a rear yard setback of 20 feet and side yard setbacks set at 10 feet. Maximum building height is 42 feet. The owner is requesting, if you can see there, the owner currently has a driveway that connects, that is servicing both this house and the house just to the north of it. The request is to amend the subdivision to create 2 separate driveways. And so you can see that their proposal would be to create 2 separate driveways, 2 independent entrances, and there would be some common space located between these driveways. There would be a couple of retaining walls. I think it's 2 4-foot retaining walls kind of between the two driveways. They've been before Planning Commission, and the Planning Commission made a favorable recommendation to the town council with a few conditions. And I'll just quickly read through the conditions and then answer any questions if you have them.
So
One
this, sorry, Thomas, I'm
Nope,
just trying
go
to
ahead.
place this. This is the new home that's going in on Longview Drive, right
On
below,
Longview.
right past Hideout Cove. I believe that's the name of that
Yes, I think that is
street.
the name of that, yes.
So it's on the downhill side in the Overlook Village area, right?
I think that is correct. I think that's the correct name for that area, Overlook Village, yeah.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
right by the, it's the first lot past the roundabout on Longview going towards my house.
Yeah. And as you can see there, this is just a kind of a quick separation that I drew in, noting that this was an existing driveway that came all the way through. That would be divided. And I think the plat prior to this is kind of the updated version of this. Yeah, you can see there that those two dark lines separate these two driveways. And you'll see that there, of course, would then be an additional entrance for this particular house. The Planning Commission, again, did review this, recommended favorably to the town council. Some conditions that were requested is that the both driveways do remain completely separated. There is common land between them. The driveways themselves are limited common for the homeowner. The plat would be revised to, again, show the strip of common land between them. It doesn't currently show on this plat. The retaining walls for this would match the retaining walls in the Hideout Canyon Phase 1 area and would be no taller than 8 feet, 2 4-foot stacked and terraced. There was a back out area that was also shown on here for the house to the north. That has been removed just because it started to encroach into the right of way and there were some safety concerns as Ryan and I reviewed it. The Planning Commission did want input from the neighbor to the north that they were fine with this. They did provide an email that's included in your packet. They did provide an email noting that they were fine with this. They actually, I think, had a preference for 2 separate driveways. And TO recommended also conditions. The new driveway easement would be labeled on the plat as common area, minimum of 3 feet between the two driveways between lot 37 and 36. Again, retaining walls, maximum height of 4 feet each. And they noted that there would be the site triangle preserved at the road at 11 by 11 feet. They asked for some explanation there. The engineer did provide that was generally a flat / downward slope area, so it should be pretty clear. And there was approximately 80 feet of separation between this driveway and the driveway to the north. I think that if you have specific questions of the engineer, Andrew Moran, I think he's on this Zoom call or he's trying to get in right now. So if there are specific questions, he could answer, but I may be able to. Oh, there he is. He's there.
Hey, Thomas, this is Chris. Thank you for presenting that. I can't believe it was ever approved with the 2 driveways connected like that, because, I mean, if I'm imagining it right, lot 36, lot 37 would have to go right past lot 36, like literally past the house to get to their own home.
Absolutely correct. And, you know, with shared driveways, they can be a little crazy during winter time and snow removal. Neighbors tend to have differences of opinion on that. So yeah, you're absolutely right. It was kind of strange.
Yeah, it was.
I mean, there's a number of those, Chris, in the Overlook subdivision, but
Yeah, I understand,
this one-
but this one particularly made so little sense. I think this is much better for both homeowners. And my only question, well, I have 2 questions. Without those retaining wall height restrictions that the Planning Commission recommended and that just presented, will that get this design? Will this design work with those?
Based on our understanding of the topo and TO's review, yes, I'll let Andrew, I think he's nodding yes, but I'll let him answer that as well.
Yeah, we've gone through the design process and designed it so that the two walls do not exceed 4 feet each. And that will work fine with the house as it's designed now.
And then how steep does that driveway have to be in order for, to get down to?
It's not too bad. I think it's 10% at the worst spot. And then it's got a flat area in front of the garage and a flat area for, 10 feet coming off the road. So it's really not too bad.
Not too bad, okay.
Well, I mean, I say that because sometimes there are places that allow driveways up to 20%, and that's really steep, but 10 is really not very steep.
I think I've been in one of those places in Pine Brook
Yeah,
where you needed a special Jeep to get up the driveway in the winter.
exactly. Yeah.
So, 10% is, I mean, from a, how does that sound, Thomas? Is that?
Yeah, for a
10%
driveway,
is our
that makes
standard for
sense.
roads, Chris.
And that's our max standard on roads. That's exactly right. Yeah.
Okay,
So we have quite a few public roads with 10% grades in town Hideout.
okay, thank you.
We have
That's
some
helpful.
above, which shouldn't have happened, but they're there.
Yeah, that's helpful. I've probably ridden my bike on them, and so I understand how steep they are. Okay. All right. I don't have any other questions. I think this is a good solution. So
Yeah.
again, no further questions for me.
Thanks.
Thanks, Chris. Any other questions for Thomas from council?
I guess I just have one, and that, because since I drive past it every time I go out of Hideout, it really looks steep to me now, but is that just because of the construction that's going on? And it'll look more, it'll level out more once landscaping and everything gets in? It just seems really steep, but.
It is, Carol, you're right. It's the way the construction vehicles have gone in are straight down the hill. They're not coming in at an angle like that. They're pretty much
This house
perpendicular
is
to
not
the-
currently under construction.
Oh. Okay, so maybe fill
You
it.
may be thinking of another house somewhere, because this is not.
Maybe I'm talking about 38 then, because there is a house under construction right there.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it is the next lot over.
That'd be the next house to the south. Is that the one, Andrew?
Yeah.
Just to the south? Okay. I wasn't sure either, actually.
Oh,
Yeah, I think-
okay.
But yeah, we were waiting for approval from you guys before we can start construction. So this particular lot 37 is not currently being excavated at all.
Okay, well, then
Okay,
it's
well,
not the
38,
one-
and it must be. Well, then definitely it's a good idea based on what I've seen go into 37, 36.
Okay.
Okay, good question, Carol. So what you're seeing is the construction line at 36, not 37.
Or the one to the south. I'm not sure. Yeah.
Well, yeah, I think what you're seeing is off the page to the south. The one to the north is already built and finished.
Oh, this is going in between them?
No, it would just be off this page. It won't show on this plat because that lot 38 is not part of this plat, but it would be just to the south of this particular project. So 36 is the one that's currently done that would have the driveway cutting in front of it. That's what we're.
Okay.
This is the
That's
one between.
This is further down on the top. Okay. All right. So yeah, it would help us, Thomas, for future reference if we could get a little bit better detail on the vicinity map.
Okay, we can do that.
Because it's just even if I make it really big, it's not helping me.
Okay.
So
Well, it's interesting you say that because when we go to Google Maps to actually look and kind of get a decent preview, of course, Google Maps is so far behind where the construction has progressed in town. It's a
Yeah, I
little
know.
hard to locate. Yeah.
Okay. All right, well, thank you. Other questions from council? I need a motion to approve the.
Mayor, this is a
proposed-
public hearing. I think we have to open this one up.
Oh, sorry, you're right. It is a public hearing. Sorry. So thanks for the reminder, Thomas. It does say that right here. I have to put that in yellow next time. So, okay, I'll open it up for public input. Any questions from the public on this change? To do that in Zoom, again, there is a information bar on your Zoom screen. Could be at the top, could be at the bottom, could be at the side, depending how you set up. It has things like stop your video and mute your mic, but in there is also a place where you can raise your hand. So you can select raise hand and we'll see you come up and we'll give you a chance to speak. Okay. I don't see any hands. All right, I'm going to close the public input on this particular item, and then we'll look for a motion to approve the lot amendment to Hideout Canyon Lot 37 as presented by Thomas tonight.
So moved.
Thank you, Chris.
I'll second.
Thank you, Carol. Ralph,
Yes.
thank you. Sherry,
Yes.
Carol,
Yes,
Chris.
Yes.
Thank you. So public hearing items 2 and 3. Based on the work that the folks at the boulders at Hideout Development needed to do, they've requested that this be deferred to a date certain, that date being the 4th of May, 2022 at 6:30 p.m. Both items 2 and 3, based on the work that those guys are doing. So, do I need a motion to do that, Polly, or do we just
Yeah,
do it
you
as
should
a?
actually open the public hearing just in case somebody wants to speak to it, but it will be discussed at that meeting on May 4th. So that's going to be more fruitful. But if somebody wants to discuss it tonight because it was noticed as a public hearing, they can do that. And then
Okay.
you should do a motion to continue it to May 4th.
Okay. All right, so I'm going to open it for public input for any public input on the boulders at Hideout Development. Although we have no new information versus the last meeting on this. I thought I saw a hand go up. There's a hand. I see Carol up there, but I don't see a microphone. So Carol Thomas. I just see the video. Well, I don't know how to. Maybe you have a separate audio line. Carol, are you also dialed in?
She might be dialed in. Do you just *6, Carol, if you are on your phone?
There's a microphone. Okay, now let me unmute you.
you are on your phone.
There you go. You're in now, Carol.
Can you hear me now?
We can.
Oh, good. Okay, so the Boulders development, I think is a very good thing for Hideout, but I am concerned about the number
There's a microphone. Okay, now let me unmute you.
of residents.
Can you mute everybody else, wherever that's coming from?
Yeah, I think that's probably, are you on YouTube as well, Carol? Because if you are, if you would just mute that real quick, and then we'll get the
There you go.
feedback.
You're in now, Carol.
Can you hear me now?
We can. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so the Boulders development, I think is a very good thing for Hideout, but I am concerned about the number
There's a microphone. Okay, now let me unmute you. No,
of residents.
somebody's got YouTube online. You gotta turn your YouTube
Yeah, I
on.
think that's probably, are you on YouTube as well, Carol? Because if you are, if you would just mute that real quick. and then we'll get the feedback.
You're in now, Carol.
Can you hear me now? Let me disconnect the YouTube. Okay, so the Boulders development, I think is a very good thing for Hideout, but I am concerned about the number
Okay, now let me unmute you.
We'll just give her a second.
Now I don't know where she is. She's completely disconnected. Any thoughts, Polly?
No, I guess, why don't we just continue on, and if she gets back on, you can accept her public input, especially since you're not
Okay,
making a
well, then-
decision tonight.
Yeah, we can come back to that and bring it back if she gets back on. It's time to open the floor for public input anyway, so. Let me do that, and then we'll come back and see if she's on by the end of that. So, for members of the public who wish to comment on anything other than the items on the agenda tonight, this is your opportunity. Again, the process is to select the raise hand functionality in the Zoom toolbar, and we'll see your hand and we'll give you a chance to speak. Okay.
Mayor, maybe I can use, I know that this is a good opportunity perhaps to just bring up the open house related to the boulders, and there was some confusion on staff's part in terms of the direction, as I understood it from last month, was that the town was going to hold an open house. I see that the developers have sent out information about an open house that they're putting on Wednesday, the 27th. And I just wanted to see whether staff should be putting one together. If the developers are doing one, then the council cannot, I mean, we have to notice it if we're going to have a majority of council there.
It was my understanding, Polly, that we were doing this, the town was putting together a survey
Okay.
alongside that, but I think we were encouraging that the developer, because create an opportunity for an open house. So I think it's possible that we could have more than 2 council members at that session potentially. So I don't know what whether we should also notice it or not, I guess. I don't know what the answer is.
If there is the possibility of there being 3 or more council members, then we should notice it for sure.
Okay, so I guess we were going to make the information available to the community, but I think then we should, Alicia, yeah, we have time. It's only the 14th, so we have time to notice it.
And
How do we notice it?
just for clarification, they're looking at either Tuesday, the 26th or Wednesday, the 27th, and or maybe both of them. So we'll want to confirm that with them.
They've issued a notice on the 27th, Thomas.
I'm sorry.
They've already issued a notice for the 27th.
My understanding is that we were providing a session similar to the annexation issue, that the town is not involved and we're not supporting or speaking out, and it's totally a residential issue. Has that changed?
Jan, do you want me to jump in?
Is this Todd?
That's Todd.
It
yeah.
is.
Mayor, are you okay if he speaks?
Yeah, I'm fine with that. It's fine.
Hey,
She
Mayor,
brought it up in the public input session. So.
no problem. So we had a lot of discussion around this, and we kind of went back and forth, and Thomas and Jan and Polly and everyone were really helpful. The conclusion we came to was the desire was to gain additional feedback from town residents. And so it was to have this kind of less formal meeting where, presentation could be made and people could ask questions, leave comment cards, so that additional feedback could be gathered beyond what's been gathered in public hearings. And then that could be reviewed by council members prior to the next council meeting. And so that was the gist of it. We understood that was kind of the assignment that was asked for at the last council meeting, but we're happy to make modifications as necessary if you'd like to see it done a different way. That's just typically in developments, we'll have a neighborhood meeting like that. And it's kind of just an informal open house where people come in and ask questions, and it really allows for a lot more openness and discussion versus, the formalities that surround typical city council hearings. So we're happy to make any adjustments you see fit.
And Mayor, we can, to your point, I think we can put out a survey that's probably more of a general kind of planning survey. I think that's kind of where the council was requesting that we go, and we can certainly do that as part of a town-led community effort, just general planning input.
That was my understanding that we had assigned, in fact, I had assigned you and Jan to work on some language with that. She was working on that.
And we've got some draft work already done. So that's kind of the direction we were going as well.
We
So
do have,
ideally, that should come out after the 26th or 27th, but give us enough time to get some feedback from the town on the survey. That would be ideal. I know there's not a lot of time between the 27th. That just gives us like 1 week, right? But it's almost like that survey needs to get out the day after the open house.
That should be doable, Ralph. We could hit, we can send it out early and tell them, put in there that, before you answer, you may want to attend this open house.
Yeah, I think that might be a good idea. We could put it out early next week, leave it live for a week, 8, 9 days until the meeting, and that gives people time to respond. We could do that.
You okay with that, Ralph?
Yes and no, because somebody who answers it initially may want to come back and re-answer it, but so that note on, so that should be part of the, the opening.
Yeah, we say we would
paragraph.
definitely put a preface
Yeah,
saying that
yeah.
the survey has to do with a proposed development. There will be an open house on this development available to the public on the 27th. If you haven't been following it, we recommend you take the time to learn more before answering the survey.
Yeah, and you got to have in there typically, that we're closing the survey at whatever, midnight of blah, blah, 2 days beforehand. Otherwise, we won't be able to collate the, the information, the feedback.
Yeah, we'll put all that in.
And Todd, just real quickly, can you confirm, is it Tuesday the 26th or Wednesday the 27th?
So we ended on Wednesday, the 27th,
Okay.
only because we thought it was middle of the week. If people were out of town early week, late in the week, we thought it'd be a good opportunity. And that was the date we put out on the Nextdoor app, or I'm not sure what that is, website. And so we thought, let's just leave it at that versus trying to change it at this point. If someone had already seen it and planned on it, we didn't want to change it. So we're leaving it on Wednesday, the 27th.
Thanks.
Great.
No problem.
Could you, so I don't know who's preparing the, the survey. Could you send me or, send council a copy of that, like as soon as possible? So we'd have some input on that.
Jan and Thomas are working on that.
Yeah,
Okay.
and we
So-
have, sorry.
I was just going to say, just, maybe prepare those as soon as possible so we have a chance to, tweak things jointly.
Sure, and we have good skill in our town, and we have Jonathan, who is on the planning commission, but he also has litigation skills and knows how to prepare jury questions. So he's working on removing any sort of bias from the questions that we have submitted, and we have several questions, so we're going to narrow it down, and I'll keep everyone informed.
Yeah,
So
we'll have some for you early next week. Okay.
That's great.
For
So my follow-up question is, we've been, and I know offline we've been talking about this. How can we widen the list of registered residents and voters, so to speak? How can we even get, when we're doing surveys, the more folks that participate, the better the results of the survey. So do we have any plan for that? Because just working off the voter list, and we want to get more people to opt in, and maybe we could put something on the website to say, hey, if you want to opt in to things like this in the future, provide us your email address, and so to make sure that you're included in future surveys. You could even
So
include
Ralph, so I'm going to answer this 2 different ways. First is we have almost all contacts for all of the utility users in Hideout. Okay. So
emails.
That's a start. All right.
Yeah.
So they will get an email about this survey and the opportunity to do that. Landowners, we also, because many of them are paying standby fees for water, so we have them as well. So there's only a small number of of folks that we don't have the ability to email at the moment. And I don't, we can do something from the postal service. It may or may not be meaningful by the time they get it. For those few that aren't there, I think we can still get a reasonable response from our email distribution. The second thing is we're moving ahead with that poly platform that we talked about a few months ago. Alicia's working on scheduling the training for the staff so we can figure out our jobs with it. And then part of that rollout of that program, of that platform, is to have a robust communication with including like door tags, hang tags, mailings, everything, to make sure that everybody knows that there is a new Hideout app that you can get it from your app store, and you can select the kinds of notices you want to get. But that's still a few weeks away from having that rolled out.
Great, sounds like all positive movement. We might want to have an opening question like, are you a voter? Are you a resident? Do you own property? So we can get some kind of, to your first point.
Did you capture that, Thomas or Jan?
Yes.
Okay, thanks, Jan. So I want to circle back to Polly's. I want to circle back to Polly's point. So, given that we've discussed what's going to happen, I think the other thing is I'm going to ask that council please communicate your intent on participating or attending the open house, and then what time, so that we don't have a quorum on hand that then would have to have been noticed. Even though it's not a town-sponsored event, it'd still be good if we could stagger our attendance.
I will be out of town, so I won't be there on the 27th.
That's also the same evening as the MAG interlocal meeting at 6:30 p.m. So I'm going to be attending that.
And I also will be attending that. What are the hours, or what is the time that the open house is going to take place?
We had proposed it to start at 5 p.m. and go until 7 or 8 p.m. whenever we needed to. So, and again, if that doesn't work, we're happy to move it. We had just landed on that date thinking that was the best date, but if there's conflicts, then we're happy to move it to Tuesday or Thursday or whatever you guys would like us to do. There's no magic to that night other than we thought middle of the week might get the most people out.
Hey Todd, this is Chris. I've been there a couple times. I don't think I will be attending.
Okay.
And I'm out of town in London that week, so I don't think I'll be attending
either night.
In that case, since no other council members there, I might drop by early and then leave early. Okay, so, but I don't think you need to worry. If your intent is to include the council, it's not going to happen. So I guess we don't have to notice it.
Yeah, no, we just want to make it available to whoever wants to be there. I mean, obviously council's all seen the property, and we just want to make it available as openly as we can.
I think people would be excited to drive up that road, that driveway behind the gate. See what's
Speaking
up
of
there.
10% grades,
House that's up there.
speaking of 10% grades, Chris.
Right.
Yes.
That's one of them. Okay. All right, so I think we've resolved that. There's been no other public input, so I'm going to close public input. I have not seen Carol Thomas come back on, but she will have another opportunity sometime in the future. So I'm coming back to the public hearing item, and that is the motion to continue the discussion and possible approval of the zoning and the MDA, potential MDA for the boulders at Hideout Development to a date certain, being May 4th, 2022.
I'll still move.
Thank you, Ralph.
I'll second.
Second. Thank you, Carol. Chris,
Yes.
Thank you. Sherry,
Yes.
Carol,
Yes.
Ralph.
Yes.
So Mayor, before we move on, just a quick question about public hearing item number 2 and the wording. I thought we talked about this in the last meeting. Is this going to continue to be presented as such to us in this way?
I apologize, Alicia had asked for a change of that, and we received an update last Friday night of the intended zoning, and I did not remember to change that in the for the agenda. They are intending to do PPD and NMU.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Thanks, Polly. That's really all I needed to hear. So next time it'll look different on May 4th.
Absolutely. I apologize.
No worries.
So
Thank you.
Alicia, can you make a note that we need to change that both in the minutes and in the next notice, please?
Yeah, and since to Chris's point, since there is, and I know just from offline calls here, that there is a significant change here, like you were just saying, Polly. Can we make sure that we get this out, like not on May 3rd, particularly for that, so we have a ability to kind of read through it in greater depth?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Can I just pile on there? Thank you, Ralph. And I know Carol probably wants to say the same thing, and I'm betting Sherry too. We need to have this several days in advance. There's a lot to read, right? So otherwise you'll risk us not continuing it again after May 4th if we don't get the material in time. Because we won't, there's a good chance we won't have had time to digest everything. And so it might not, the meeting might not, happen as, efficiently as we all want. So do we have to specify, do we have to start
We
laying
do
down the law
specify.
here?
So Chris, we do specify, okay, we have dates set, we have fixed cutoffs, okay? Unfortunately, we also have a very busy staff who doesn't necessarily manage to get everything done on time, and I apologize for that. And I'm sure they were doing their very best, but they also have lives and families and so forth that have to get dealt with. So sometimes we miss the cutoff. I guess we can, I can be, Alicia and I can be the gatekeeper, and anything that isn't in on the I think it's the Tuesday before the Thursday, I think is what it says. We just won't put it on the agenda, period. And then stuff will just drag out, but it'll be what it'll be. So I'm trying to find a balance. Alicia's been working hard. You got copies of stuff, as you saw, as soon as it was available. She did a really good job this month, I think, getting everything as quickly as she had her hands on it to us. We didn't get the final deck to the last minute, but most of the elements in the deck have been shared.
And thank you. I know the staff is working hard, Mayor, and it's not just for us, it's for the rest of the public that wants to participate in this.
I agree,
process.
Chris.
So
I agree completely. I don't know what the right answer is. We're trying.
Well, in this
Because the package
situation,
doesn't get done to the last minute, so the public doesn't get to see the package to the last minute. So that's another issue.
right.
I think the onus is on Todd and Mac to, give them.
I'm not talking about that specifically, Ralph. I think Chris.
I know it's general,
whole
but it's
package.
also in this kind of situation, it's so big that, if we can make sure that we do, that our town staff gets it, in an adequate amount of time so they can turn it around to us.
Yeah, and as Ralph mentioned, the changes are going to be substantial if we're going to PPD and overlay and whatever, and we might actually have an MDA to look at. So it's going to be a lot to digest.
I want to put my comments in there that I don't think that the Tuesday before the Thursday of the meeting, giving us just 48 hours during a work.
No, it's the
week-
Tuesday of, Carol, it's the Tuesday of the week before
Oh,
Thursday.
okay. That I'm great with that. Okay.
I have a follow-up question, if I may.
So, sorry, hang on one second, Jan, if you could just hang on for a second. So basically, our council meeting is May 12th, and we're talking about everything in on May 3rd. Anything we don't have on May 3rd doesn't get on the May 12th council meeting.
And actually, I think for this one, Mayor, it's the meeting's on May 4th. It's the special meeting. So,
I know, I understand the
oh,
the
okay.
special meeting. I'm talking about all the other items that are going to be on the May council, standard council.
So on the May 4th, are we just restricting, just for boulders, correct? Just,
That's all May 4th is bold.
okay.
Go ahead, Jan, sorry.
Would you prefer to receive information as it becomes available, or would you rather receive it all as a packet? I know the budget report became available and I sent it out to council, and also the PID policy I sent the next morning after our last meeting. Would you prefer to receive pieces as they become available, or should we continue to put them all into a packet and send them out together?
So my preference, only because I'm afraid I'll read something and then you'll make changes one or more times before it becomes final. I would like to see the final version, obviously as soon as possible.
The final version when it becomes available rather than as a packet?
Yes, when the final version when it becomes available, and also the packet.
Okay,
on time.
great. Thanks, Chris.
That's my preference. Thank you.
So I think if we can, Alicia, let's work on that for May 3rd, for the May 12th meeting, and see if we can't agree on May 4th, if whatever information we have on May 4th is what the council is going to be, and if there's other stuff, it's wait until June. Unless it's a matter of health and safety or something like that. And for the voters meeting, obviously, you guys know that the sooner you get your content available for May 4th, the happier we're all going to be. Okay. Let's move on if that's okay. So we have a presentation from the Wasatch County School District tonight. They've done some work on the future of schools. The presenter will be Lindsay Ferrari, who's on the call tonight. And Lindsay will get you a chance to chat in just a minute. She's joined by a school board member, Kimberly Dickerson, and also Superintendent Sweat is also expected to be on the call tonight. I'm not sure if he's on yet, but so I'm going to pull up your Alicia's, yeah, it's in here. Okay, so I'll pull up your presentation and then.
Actually, Mayor, can I share my screen? Because I've changed the order of this. They're the same slides, but I've changed.
Sure, you can. Let me stop sharing and let you go for it.
But I'll let Kim. Do you want to say anything to kick us off, Kim?
Sure. I'll just quickly introduce myself. I'm Kim Dickerson, school board member for Wasatch County School District. I represent the Jordanelle area. We are joined by Garrick Peterson and Kirsta Albert, both directors with Wasatch County School District. Superintendent Sweat is on another meeting right now. So we just real quick, we're just here to connect with the Jordanelle community members and explain what we've been doing with the Future Schools project, and hopefully answer any questions that you may have for us. And please reach out anytime. I know Chris has my email and maybe number, so you can get the contact information from her, but I'm always open and available to answer any questions that you may have about our school district and things that are going on. And thank you for having us join tonight.
Thanks for reaching out. And, you know, the council has talked about schooling as it deals with both Hideout and the Wasatch area here. And the fact that we recognize that it's a difficult location, particularly for the younger kids, because the transit times are ridiculous. And we're excited to hear about possibilities for making some changes about that, because we're very supportive of trying to find a way to make it more palatable.
Thank you. And we really are working to just figure out better ways to communicate with you and to connect and to build a relationship with the community. So, okay, Lindsay.
Thank you.
Okay, let's see here. So I'm not sure how much you all know, so I'm just going to basically do an introduction and an overview of the process, and which will bring you up to speed to where our committee members are right now. So we started this process last fall. The team is a GSBS team, which is, they are an architecture and planning firm. I am a public involvement consultant. So my job is to make sure that the community gets heard and that their inputs are part of this process. And the process is about creating a master facilities plan that gives the board the information they need to make decisions regarding facilities over the next 20 years. So let me, this is a little bit about the process. And the first step was last fall was understanding the community's vision. We did a statistically valid community survey asking questions about the value of education, what was important about education. And there's more information on the website. The actual survey is on the website. You can read the whole thing. The next step was working with two committees, a steering committee and an advisory committee, and also an educators committee, so actually three, to create what we call guiding principles. And so those were kind of the criteria. They developed these a set of 5 criteria that I'll go over fairly quickly about how facilities should reflect the community needs in terms of education. The third step was to look at the district's current facilities and see how they measured up to those guiding principles, and then to also see how they performed in terms of just maintenance issues, safety concerns, overall suitability of the buildings. We next looked at options for how to address growth. This was our last major committee meeting. And so the items we looked at were year-round schools, changing school boundaries, more online offerings, things like that. And then this is where we are now. So we had an open house last week. I think we had about 150 people, and we shared the results of all those meetings with them and got one more round of input. And then we're going to have one more meeting with the committee next week. And then the team, the GSBS team, will be providing some final recommendations to the board. Any questions? Just raise your hand. I can't see, maybe Mayor can let me know if anybody raises their hand, because since I'm sharing screen, I can only see a few of you at one time.
Okay.
So, that'd be great. Just yell out and I'll stop. So this is an overview of the community engagement structure, just the roles of the educator committee, the community steering committee, advisory committee, and all of their names are on the website. It's a nice mix of people with kids in the system, without kids in the system, business leaders, community leaders, and so on.
So I'm going to raise my hand,
okay.
If that's okay.
Yep.
And just, you know, if you're going to talk about it, fine. But, you know, I think our number one concern is the growth around the Jordanelle Basin, and making sure that you're conscious of the fact that there's 15,000 approved units coming in a, I don't know, 10 square mile, 5 square mile area. It's going to put a lot of pressure on this corner of the county.
And So Christine Richmond, who's the planning lead, collects all that data as part of the process for the whole county. And those are gigantic numbers. They're big numbers everywhere. It's amazing, the growth that's expected. Yeah. Okay, so guiding principles. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on these, but you can go back and look. These again were developed by the community and the educators. So schools should support teachers in delivering high quality education. That means that they defined those as, so let's have class sizes that allow for effective teacher-student ratios. Let's make sure there are spaces for our professional learning communities to work together and create educational curriculum. These are the other two. Schools are integrated into the community, and schools support students in overall wellness. So here are the numbers that we looked at each school at the capacity, and Garrick may want to chime in because we've had questions about how these capacity numbers are figured, and I can't remember if they're based on basically just building size or if there's some sort of state input on that. Is Garrick still here?
These are state figures that help us figure out capacity. It's based on number of classrooms, some square footage numbers, but mostly number of classrooms, and then taking an average of kids in those classrooms. That's how that is figured. If you look at this, you can see where the kids out in your area right now, for instance, elementary school, they're designated to the J.R. Smith Elementary School boundary. And you can see we do look at the growth that's coming out there, and the numbers that we've looked at, that J.R. Smith Elementary boundary and one other school boundary, Daniels Canyon, that's where the growth's going to just fly real quick. So we are aware of that and aware that some's going to, we just have to look for options there. So.
This slide just has current.
So can you go back to that? This is Ralph speaking. Can you go back to that previous slide? So I was looking at this prior to the meeting, and it looks like 2030 is a, kind of the capacity year, so to speak, for both from middle and elementary. But then if I look at the numbers in the very right column, it says your full capacity is reached. You got 2018, 2024, 2023. So that's significantly before 2029. Is that because where the asterisks are, there's some other capacity that's going to make up for that? How did you come to that 2029 year when growth is so fast between that we're looking at now, and then it's giving us a window of 2029?
Yeah, so both Heber Valley and Daniels Canyon have capacity. So that's where you would do some boundary shifts. That would give you, that would buy you some time in there, and have some different kids attend some different schools than their current boundary is.
Okay.
So that works for elementary, but you can't do that for the high school, obviously.
Right.
So that provides some different issues.
Yeah.
This is just some more detail about where capacity is now. I won't spend a lot of time on that. I talked about the educational suitability assessment of the actual schools and also the facilities conditions. And so these are the criteria that were created as part of the guiding principles. And the team used those to create scores for each school. And these are this overall scores for the guiding principles. How well do the buildings align now? And then this is
Higher is better.
Yes. Yeah. It is five.
So
Five.
this is with a 2. All these 2s are not very exciting.
Let's see. Let's go. Can I go make that a little bigger? Oh, maybe that was too big.
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah. Yeah. So the West Campus has a very low score.
Yeah. So just if you guys haven't been around forever, West Campus is is an older building, and that's, you can see at the high school, it says we're over capacity. The way that they're increasing the capacity is by using that old West Campus, or the old junior high school is what it was back in the day. Anyway, and it's been in Timpanogos Intermediate School. So that's how they're getting the capacity over right now. But you can see that facility is not in great shape right now. So there's, again, that's where that high school is going to really hit ahead here pretty soon.
And then, oh, it's hard to go back to that. Let's see. And then here's the actual, more detail about the actual conditions of each school. So that has, I think, let's see, where's Wasatch on that one? Or the,
Wow. So.
oh, the West
Timpanogos
Campus, here it is. Yeah. Just has more information about the year it was built, about the actual, when the remodels were done. And then down here, you can see the overall facility condition. And so the West High School campus all gets a low score here as well.
One of the things on that West Campus, for any of you guys that are involved in construction and all that West Campus was built with the old T-beam model, which is, again, not the greatest construction time period that ever existed. So we're done with that on a little bit on West Campus, and that's why that feasibility is a little bit low too.
So let's see here. I think that's so big now. So I mentioned the options that were looked at the last community meeting, and I'm going to just go through these really quickly. Each one of these boards is a summary of the discussion at the joint advisory and steering committee meeting. So we described sort of what grade configuration is, and as it relates to the high school, we discussed moving 9th grade out of the high school and back to the middle school. And we talked about the pros and cons. We had experts zoom in for each one of these subjects, folks from other districts around the state, to get their input, and then just kind of did a thumbs up, thumbs sideways, or thumbs down. And the committee really did agree at the time that the current 9 through 12 high school configuration is the best. Whoops. Let's see, school boundary adjustment. So this is, as Garrick mentioned, this would be a strategy for use in the elementary schools. And so the pros are that it really does relieve the overcrowded schools without building new additions or new schools. It works at the elementary and middle school level, and it can be used for a temporary fix. It doesn't solve the long-term problem, but you can use it to get by for a few more years. But the cons are that it doesn't increase overall capacity and can't be used at the high school level. And it also is a pretty emotional issue for a lot of parents. People are attached to their elementary school and want to keep their kids in the neighborhood. So that one kind of had a thumb sideways.
Lindsay, can you hear me?
Yes.
I just want to jump in super quick. I'm driving, but I just want to let the council members know that our committee members consist of over 70 people that we pulled from the community, including Jordanelle. We do have some representatives from Jordanelle. So just to understand how many people we're talking when we're discussing these options.
Thanks, Kim. Do you know the names of the Jordanelle folks? I haven't gotten to know who's from where yet.
Our one representative is Diane Tacky, but I am not sure she was here for that March 3rd meeting. Okay. She has been to a few meetings, but it was a really big meeting. So,
okay.
Yeah.
All right. So this one was about double sessions and extended days. So you basically get two groups of kids into the same school. You start one group earlier, they overlap in the middle, and start one group later. The pro is that you can accommodate a lot more kids, but the cons are that the teachers really struggle. It's hard to connect with as many kids in one day and feel like they're having that impact. And it may be more expensive because of the longer days. You have to pay the teachers more. So we ended up with the kind of a thumbs down on that one. Online coursework, there's been a lot of talk about, well, during COVID, we learned that kids can do online. Why can't we make that work and increase our overall capacity? But based on how many kids have been using online and other information, it looked like really you could only get about 2.5% increase from online. The only way you can really make that work is to make it mandatory. and make a certain number of kids do online remote classwork from home. So the pro is that you can offer more classes without straining the facility, but it needs to be mandatory, and generally student performance suffers. I think Garrick, were you the one that presented that information?
Yeah, well, the department that I work in did. So that 2.5%, you know, this surprised us, I think, a little bit coming out of COVID, or maybe the kids just hated online so bad that they decided to just not do it again. But that's coming out of COVID. That's what percent of our kids are now choosing to take online, an online course or full time. It's a little bit of a relief. It's not a big deterrent, and our board is, and I think most of our community is more of a choice community. Let's give parents choice. So there's not a lot of will to go and start requiring kids to go online for courses and stuff like that. So that's really the number where we got to.
I would say that the school experience beyond the classroom elements is a microcosm of life, and important for kids to participate in and not grow up in an isolated space connecting electronically. So I think, you know, I think the answer is probably right. And I think it's probably wrong on our part to say we're just going to do everything electronically, because kids need to learn how to function in social groups.
Yeah, I think the pandemic taught the parents and the kids that. They watched the kids kind of suffer through that a little bit, and maybe that's something we wondered. And then I think people kind of got their answer, and they're kind of voting with their feet on that one right now.
Okay, and then year-round enrollment. Garrick, where was the superintendent that spoke about this? That was Jordan District. That's the one district. They're actually just getting out of their last year-round school. She kind of talked through, there were a couple of pros she talked about, but she talked a lot about the challenges that Jordan's had with that year-round model, and the challenge that it is for families. They are very excited to be having, they told us how excited they were to be having their last one go off, I think, next year. So I think as people talk through that, they realize we can get more kids in the school, but they just didn't like the option. The people on the committee did. Yeah, and the committee felt pretty were pretty unanimous in that. So there's one more. So then the last was new facilities and additions. And we presented a couple of options. One is to create additions for the high school. This is mostly as it relates to the high school. And then the other would be to build a new school. And so the pros are that it is this long-term solution to growth, and all the numbers that we have show that the county will continue to grow for 20 years. We've looked 20 years out, and the growth is very, very strong throughout the 20 years. The con is that the cost of building additions and new schools, it's more an expensive option. So, but they did feel like that was a solution that made sense to the committee. So now I'll go through and talk about elementary, middle school, and high school, and based on that information, kind of where the team is right now. So this is just another way at looking at enrollment and capacity. These figures, for the first 10 years or so, we rely on Davis demographics, which the district has used for years, and it looks at the number of students in the county or in the area. And then the longer term figures come from the Gardner Policy Institute, which looks at overall state growth. And so it's a combination of those two.
Just so you know, just a little, that Davis demographics, the way they do their work is they come in and they meet with cities, and they actually look at planned and approved developments. So kind of, they don't project, they look at what's actually, like you said, what, 15,000? That's what they're looking at, are those 15,000. So, and then they give a metric for each unit, what kind of a unit it is, what neighborhood it's in. They have a way of figuring it out. So they actually go down to the neighborhood, and they might say, hey, this neighborhood in Heber City is going to produce 1.9 kids on average per house because it's in family dwelling. They might say this unit up in the up where you guys live is going to produce 0.2 kids per unit, but they actually have a figure that goes through that based on their study. Since it's like those planned or approved, they're pretty accurate for the first 5 years, and then they'll be the first to tell you their accuracy goes a little bit not as reliable after the first 5 years. So that's why we combine Davis, really rely on their 5 years for our planning, and then we go to the Ken Gardner after that for long term.
So they would have the 15,000 units built into this model.
Right.
So the recommended actions are to use the boundary adjustment and portable classrooms as temporary measures to get through the next few years, to address the facility condition of the schools that need it most, and evaluate the future of Midway Elementary. That one was the one that really does need to be rebuilt or remodeled. And then this is where you would come in. They would plan for and construct, the planning team suggests planning for and constructing a new elementary school for occupancy in 2027. So if it takes 3 years to do that, that planning and design and construction, in about 2 years is when the board would make that decision. And that's when the decision about where the elementary school would go happens. Garrett, do you have anything you want to add there?
No, yeah, okay. That's exactly right. I think it's just going to be, we'll look at where the growth hits the quickest over the next few years and then start making those decisions based again, these are recommendations that the board's going to have to act on. These are the recommendations that are starting to come out of the work of the committee. And so.
Yeah. So elementary school, it's nice because you can use this combination of strategies. It gets a little harder as you get to middle school and high school. Here's the enrollment and capacity timeline for middle school, and it's a longer timeline. So the recommended actions, there was some discussion about whether they should change the configuration, and the group decided that we should maintain the current grades of 6 through 8 for middle school. There are some suitability considerations and updates and things like that should happen as soon as funding is available. And then the planning for new middle schools will further out. It would be in the next 5 to 10 years when enrollment reaches 90% of capacity.
And I would say, especially with this is where the recommendations are right now. There is one more meeting coming up next week. Mm-hmm. And that'll kind of be, I think, close to the end of the gathering of information discussion. We'll see where that goes after that.
And so in high school is the least developed right now because of this next committee meeting. We're really going to talk about the new construction options. So what are all the various ways we can either do additions or new buildings to address the high school need? So this is basically just a repetitive what you saw earlier. The options considered were this optional coursework. They said, yeah, keep doing that. Mandatory online coursework, thumbs down. An addition, they thought, yeah, an addition might be useful to just meet the current enrollment, because as you remember, we're already over capacity. And then there was support for construction of something new, but there was a lot of discussion about would that be a smaller school, a satellite, a magnet school? Would it be a similar sized high school? And I would say from my recollection, that was probably had the most support, 2 medium-sized schools for the district. But there was some support for creating 1 larger high school. So those are the 3 scenarios we'll be talking about at next week's committee meeting.
So thanks. I mean, this is very interesting and very helpful. And obviously you guys done a lot of good work here trying to figure out where you are. And it may be too late. I don't know. I mean, I think that you have to talk to the county council about this stuff. But what Hideout has been trying to figure out is with our consideration for growth in Hideout, either through existing land or through annexation, taking land from the county. We are trying to figure out what developers can do to help address this situation. Can they provide land? Can they provide funds? So there's a lot of people going to be building a lot of stuff around here over the next 10 years. And I don't know, I only know about Hideout. I don't know about the county, relationships with the various things they've approved. But this is the time to try and exact stuff from your developers. This is the time to say, okay, I know this is a serious need. We've got this study. Let's go back and revisit what you've been approved and how can you help us solve this problem. I mean, that's one way to use other people's money besides taxpayers, at least on the front end. The taxpayers eventually will end up paying for it because the developers aren't that magnanimous, I don't think. But it's an opportunity because these guys want to get stuff going. So I just throw that out as a thought to figure out how do you use your development community to help you address some of these issues.
Is Kim still on? Kim?
I am. I'm here. I'm just pulling into my garage.
That's one where, like with relationships, I would say that's one where we probably want to get together and talk about your area specifically, what can be done. I know, as those places are approved, there are developers that try to make some land available. Utah is not an impact fee state, so that's not going to happen here. So it is going to fall back on the general county to build the school. But the land is something where I think different things have been used based on the community and what can be worked out with developers. So you're exactly right.
I worked on with Daybreak, Kennecott Land's Daybreak community back in the early 2000s, and that's South Jordan was very concerned about elementary schools. And I mean, that's a big developer, Kennecott Land, but they did set aside 2 lots for elementary schools, and they've both been built in the subsequent time. And it encouraged people to move there too, because they knew there was land for an elementary school.
So that's probably one where maybe you, Mayor, and maybe the superintendent sit down and powwow a little bit and see what's possible. I do think a school, and I think most people feel a school in a community adds value to it, and it is a commute for you guys in right now. So that's a new community out there and one that's got to be taken care of over time.
Derek, I have one additional concern, and that's I know the Jordanelle area is typically thought of as second homes, and I know you have to look long range, and I know in Midway many projections were based on second homeowners, and then people come as second homeowners and make it their first home, and I wonder if we could look at Midway as that model, because right now we're doing a lot of second homes. But they get here and it's magical. People want to stay. So could we maybe just keep that model in mind and make sure we plan appropriately for, the potential that we have of having many children and not enough schools?
Yeah.
Can I jump in? Oh,
Yeah,
sorry. Go ahead, Kim.
Go ahead. No, Kim, you take that one.
Well, I just wanted to let the council know that we've actually toured the Jordanelle area with Nikki Kai, and we got a glimpse of what is going on up there. And we are definitely aware that this is not just a second home a development up there, that people are moving there as their primary home. So that is definitely something we do talk about, and we're keeping an eye on the numbers, the student growth, and I definitely encourage communication. Like, I want to work with you and just discuss, just stay in tune with what's going on up there, and just work on a relationship so that we can come up with solutions with you.
To that point, just a question here from myself. Are we looking at the demographics, so to speak, households with children versus, so if second home folks often may have kids that are grown up. I mean, most of the people I know in Hideout, like myself, have either kids in college someplace or so have that's Hideout. I don't know if the demographics are going to be mixed in other areas, but are we looking at that in terms of, there might be a lot of growth, but maybe of those 20,000 homes, only 10,000 in our case might have, children of elementary, middle school, or high school age.
Yeah, that's something.
Do we have any numbers on that?
Yeah. So again, and I wish if you ever want, come slip down to the school district office, and we do have the Davis demographic study. In fact, Kirsty, it might be online to look at, but you'll notice if you go down into neighborhoods, they'll have Hideout, and they might say with Hideout, for every unit you're going to get, and I do think the number's low. I think it's like 0.1 kid right now is their projection. I can't remember exactly, but it's not high. So that'll mean, so for every 10, you can expect a kid. And yeah, they do that by getting boots on the ground, talking to developers, seeing what kind of people, they actually come out and they go through and they meet with the developer, talk, what are you selling these as second homes? What are you doing? And then they make their best projection. But they are projections, just like what was just said. Could that shoot up on us? Could that go down on us? You never know until the people buy the house and who moves into it, actually.
Oh,
So those are projections you use. But yeah, that's taken into account heavily, very heavily.
The other piece of the puzzle is the fact that this area of the county, as well as Summit, are working hard and trying to figure out how do we address the workforce needs and the workforce housing needs and so forth. And with that will come different age demographic, et cetera.
Yep.
Right. So if we actually build housing, you're going to end up with families.
Yeah.
One follow-up question which didn't come up. I grew up in an area on the East Coast where we had both private and public schools. So are there any anything from charter to other private schools that make up, some of the overflow, or just people like to send their kids to private schools? And I know in my growing up, I did both. So just wondering, I have less of a feel for that here in the Wasatch Summit area. So is any input on that?
We have kids. Yeah, we watched that a little bit. We have a charter school down called Soldier Hollow. That takes some kids. Most of those kids return back to us at the high school. That's why you'll see those numbers kick up. And then there's Wildland school as well. We have quite of our few kids go there. And then you'll see a spattering go to other places as well, but not as much from Wasatch County.
Hey, Garrick, going back to your other statement about, this area, I guess only like 0.1 child.
I don't know. I shouldn't have spoke to that. I don't know what it actually is.
If it doesn't, whatever the number is, I can argue it's low because people with kids don't want to move to Hideout because they don't want to bus their kids 20 miles to J.R. Smith Elementary School. And so they don't move here, or they come here and they send their kids to private school, or they come here and they're able to enroll in the Park City School District. So it's like, I think if you build it, they will come here. It's like the families will move into this area if they had a place to send the little ones to school that's nearby.
I think you might be right.
Okay, guys, I'm sorry from time standpoint for both these guys and the fact that we have other people waiting to present tonight. I think we're going to have to cut it here.
Well, thank you.
I appreciate it.
Thank you so
We all
much.
appreciate it. Thanks for reaching out and making the contacts. And as you can tell by the questions and the comments, we all have energy for this topic. So.
Okay, we're going to excuse Garrick Peterson. He's got to go. But one last thing is, you're welcome to come to this meeting next Tuesday. I can email Chris with the information, or we can have Lindsay give you the information. But if anybody wants to come to this meeting next Tuesday, you're welcome to come.
I'll send that to Alicia and she can circulate that.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Okay.
Good.
Thank you.
Good.
Thank
Thank
you.
you all very much. We really appreciate it. Very interesting and very helpful.
Thank you so much. Bye.
Bye. Okay, so I think you're seeing the agenda again. I'm going to reverse the flow of items 2 and 3 because we've got the auditor on who can't stay much longer. So we're going to jump to the review of the annual municipal audit performed by Charles Richards. And then we'll come back and look at the third quarter financials. So Amy, I guess, are you presenting?
Yes, I am here. Can you hear me all right?
Good. We can, thanks. I'm going to make this a little bigger because it's
Okay.
not fair to, or do you want to present?
Okay, great. No, if you would do that, and if you wouldn't mind just jumping to certain pages, that would be great.
No, I'm happy to
have
be the driver.
Okay, great. I think maybe, do you have the document titled 2021 Audited Financial Statements?
I don't know. I don't know if it's in this package, but
I think that specific letter was the 2021 management letter, and we will address that one. But I did send another file, 2021 Audited Financial Statements.
Alicia, is that ringing a bell for you?
I don't think I got that.
Would you like me to project it?
That would be great, Jan, if you've got a copy.
Yeah.
Okay. Maybe we should move to Jake quickly while I'm.
I don't recall seeing. But do you have it up, Amy? Do you want to present?
Let me give it a shot. I might have to get a new connection on my computer real quick.
I've got it right here.
Jan's got it. Okay.
Okay.
So Alicia, let's make a note. We're going to need to get all these documents pulled together and appended to the meeting package so that we have the right content in the right place. And then get reissued.
Do I have sharing rights?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Can you see my screen?
It's there now.
That's it. That looks great. Okay. Jan, would you mind just going to page 3 of the PDF?
Okay.
Okay. This is the independent auditor's report. Just to give the council, the auditor's opinion was a clean opinion, which means the financial
This is what I was
statements
just
are presented
showing.
fairly. Oh, let's see.
All right, go ahead. Sorry. Go ahead, Jen, or Amy, sorry, go ahead.
I'm
That's
on.
all right. I think.
Is she in the right
so
one?
Just
the one
back up a
posted?
little bit. That's
wanna-
okay. How about we let's just jump ahead to page 14 of the PDF
Okay.
or page 10 of the document. So again, I just wanted to let the council know that there was a clean opinion issued. We'll kind of review a quick overall financial overview and then let you know what findings we had. Jan scrolls down, I'll kind of describe, we have a couple of governmental funds this year. Last year we just had the general fund. And this year we added a capital projects fund. Going down, we're almost there.
Page 14.
Page 10 of the document, and it's 14 of the PDF. If you're in a PDF viewer.
This is 14. 10.
No, it's 10.
Page 10.
Okay.
Okay, yep, that's it. So you can see we have the general fund and the capital projects fund. The general fund total assets is 2.4 million at the end of 2021. It increased about 1.1 million over the prior year, mostly in the cash balances. You can see total liabilities are 1.6 million, about a third of the way down the page. That increased about 866,000 due to some payable or some customer deposits by developers. And then you've got the total fund balance at the bottom of the page for the governmental fund of 624,000. That increased about 250 from the prior year. The capital projects fund is kind of small. Most of the activity and the funds were spent in 2021, but the remaining balances, we've got about 41,000 in assets, 27 in liabilities. So your fund balance in capital projects is small, but it's 13,000. You're aware of that. You want to go to the next 2 pages down. We've got the statement of revenues, expenditures, and changes in fund balance. We'll just take a brief look at what your revenues came in at for the general fund. They came in at 1.2 million, $416,000 more than the prior year, mainly due to licenses and permits. Your expenditures totaled 1 million, a slight increase of 282,000 over the prior year. Most of that increase was in general government. You can see the expenditures by department: general government, public safety, highways, and parks and rec. So the excess of revenues over expenditures in the general fund was 175,000. So that adds to your fund balance. So the net change in fund balance was 250,000. We've got a few items. Well, we don't have the restricted here. That was on the prior page, but we've got interest, and you had 71,000 received from the COVID grant. So total fund balance for the general fund is 624,000. And again, just a small amount, 13,000 in capital projects. So that's kind of an overall view of your governmental funds. There's a few restrictions. Class C, there's about 67,000 restricted for Class C and about 28,000 for bond reserves. And unrestricted is 493,000 for your general fund. Your proprietary fund, which is mostly your water fund, if you want to scroll down, Jen, the statement of net position for proprietary funds. There, that's perfect. So you've got total assets in your water fund of 2.2 million. That increased 1.2 million over the prior year, mostly in your cash balance again. And you've got your capital assets under non-current at 4 million. Total assets at 6.3 million. Total liabilities at 899,000. The majority of that is sitting in your accounts payable. That was an impact fees payable amount to JSSD as of December 31st, 2021. The only restricted amount for your water fund is your net investment in capital assets of 4 million, and then you have your unrestricted amount at 1.3 million for a total net position of 5.4 million. And if you'll scroll to the next page, we'll take a look at your revenues and expenses for your water fund. Total revenue came in at 1.1 million. That increased about 48,000. So not a huge increase in revenues and expenses for the water fund. Total expenses were 905,000 and total operating income at 217,000. We did get some additional impact fees of 55,000 and some capital contributions, meaning your donated infrastructure for your water, sewer, and storm drain. So your net change in position for the water fund was 572,000. you have an ending net position of 5.4 million. So that's a brief overview of the financial activity for the year ended December 31st, 2021. We did have several items we wanted to discuss related to findings. Are there any questions at this point before we move to that portion of the presentation? Okay, so Jan, we've got to jump to the end of the document, the last 3 pages. It'll be page 46 of the PDF or page 40 of the document. That should be it. So yeah, so go up to the first finding is labeled 2021-01, Material Misstatements. And this is a material weakness and a repeat finding from the prior year. That management is responsible to maintain accurate financial reporting for the usefulness of management and the governing board. Several factors. There were various year-end adjustments, reclassifying entries, and reconciliations that weren't performed at the time of the audit, resulting in the need for several adjustments to be made by management as proposed by the auditors. So we recommend the town perform monthly and year-end adjusting entries and account reconciliations to ensure the financial reports of the town are accurate. That is the first recommendation. It's kind of broad in scope. The next recommendation.
Can we not skip over? Can we not skip over that, the action already? Because there's been some action taken. So for the council needs to know that.
Okay.
Sorry, could you
Would
scroll
you like
back
me to
up,
read the
Dan?
response, or did you want to address that?
Yes, please. Yeah, I would like you to read the response, or at least let the council have a chance to read the response.
Sure. The response as written says the town has budgeted for and hired a new employee in town hall who has the necessary skills to perform monthly and year-end adjusting entries and reconciliations.
And that person started what, 2 weeks ago, Jan?
Yes, actually we hired Chris. This is for a prior fiscal year end. We hired Chris.
Sorry.
And she retired, but we hired Carrie, who has begun, and we've even improved the process, so.
Good.
Okay, the second finding is controls over documentation. Management cannot provide necessary documents to support accounting transactions when asked for by auditors. Examples of that include copies of canceled checks were not retained, details on deposits were unavailable, subdivision detail agreements and invoices were not available for 2 specific developers. An item in the GL did not match the bank statement. 2 receipts requested as part of a test of expenses were unable to be provided, and documentation for receivable was unavailable. So we'd recommend the town maintain documentation for all transactions recorded on the GL. Management's response is they have cleared out a file cabinet to make an organized location where the backup documents will be organized and available for auditors.
This was a difficult year.
The third finding. Go ahead.
Sorry, we were all working remotely, so this was a little difficult to coordinate backup with the, I believe we followed the procedures accurately, and now that we're coming back into town hall, we'll have the records just more organized and available for our auditors.
Great. The third finding is inadequate review of credit card charges. We'll jump to the condition. While we reviewed credit card charges, we noticed 10 receipts, 3 fuel purchases that were possibly fraudulent, and 7 Amazon purchases made for personal use. So we recommend that the town maintain supporting receipt for all credit card purchases, and that an independent review of the credit card statement and supporting receipts be performed. And management's response is that they have initiated a procedure for reconciliation of the town cards and a new employee. who can ensure timely bank reconciliation to serve as a double check. So that's the recommendations over credit cards. The fourth recommendation deals with payroll documentation. Similar to the finding earlier, only specific to payroll where we could not find approved pay rate documentation, only from the payroll system itself. It's nice to be able to trace back to an employee file and wage listings that we know were approved by management. So we were unable to verify that the rate was correct. So we recommend the town maintain an employee payroll file for each employee that contains the necessary documents approved by management. And it sounds like management has created and attached a new form for all salary adjustments. And they will be signed by the mayor and filed in the existing employee files. So that will address our concern there. And then the final recommendation, and well, let's see, no, we've got two more. Number 5 deals with controls over cash receipts, and cash receipts meaning any funds, checks coming into the town. In 2021, there was no evidence of review of cash receipts. And part of that evidence is that management should compare cash receipting reports to cash received, and that's just to make sure everything gets deposited. So we recommended independent individual reconcile the cash receiving reports to the cash received and reported on the bank statement. So it sounds like management has changed who prints the deposit register, so the person taking the deposit to the bank isn't the same as the one preparing the register. The register will be given to the employee who reconciles the bank statement, and the mayor will also review cash receipts and pull to the cash receipt book on a monthly basis. And then the final finding deals with state compliance. They had a budgetary compliance issue where for the year ended June 30th, 2021, general fund expenditures went in excess of appropriations by $276,000. And also there is a requirement that quarterly reports be presented to the council, and they were not being presented regularly to the governing body. So we recommend the town council review and retain budget to actual reports each quarter and ensure that expenditures do not exceed appropriations. Management's response is with a bigger staff, they will do more frequent budget adjustments and provide financial statements quarterly to the council. Okay, so those are the findings in the bound audit report that's submitted to the Office of the State Auditor's Office. And we do have a separate letter, which the mayor pulled up originally. You want to jump over to that one now? The mayor, we can review those. Just start on the second page, and the findings labeled 2021-07. Controls over separation of duties. So it's a good accounting practice to make sure that certain duties are separated. And specifically, the duties we're looking at are at the same person that does the bank transfer also has access to the GL and does the bank reconciliation. And we couldn't find documentation that these items were being reviewed by an independent individual. So we recommend that these duties be separated to different people or implement mitigating controls that might address that conflict. Specifically that management perform a review of bank transfers on a regular and timely basis. And the response is the town has engaged the services of a consultant who will be involved in restructuring the financial department, and we'll work with our auditors to strengthen internal controls. And then the final item had to do with allocation of costs. Management, as far as we could tell, did not have an allocation plan for payroll and expenses between departments or funds. So we recommend that the town prepare and approve an allocation plan based on a reasonable methodology that can be tracked and more easily audited. And management's response says we will make the cost allocation part of the budget preparation will be presented to the council for approval. Mr. Mayor, if you wouldn't mind scrolling down the last few pages, there were an appendix of the journal entries that we proposed to correct the statements to a material level where we could issue a clean opinion. And these kind of come back to that very first finding where we talked about the adjustments that needed to be made. And there's about 4 pages of these, but it's important for management to kind of take responsibility for these and to understand the work and the adjustments that were necessary part of the audit. So those are included there. I'd be happy to answer, any questions you might have on those later as you scroll through them. Some of them are quite detailed, but so that's the audit as briefly as I could present it. I apologize. I know you've got a long meeting and a lot of things to address, but are there any questions I could help answer or at this time?
Just want to comment, Amy, that you guys have been extremely helpful, and we're growing, a growing community and growing town, growing with your help, you and the whole team at Charles Richards. And we've come a long way from the very first time we worked with you. We still obviously have work to do. We've gotten some, part of the problem is that we've also gotten some difference of opinion from the various financial consultants. And we do things one way, and then we look at it with your help at another time, and we get some feedback that says, really, you might want to do it this way instead. So we're still sorting that out. But I think, as I said, I think we've made good progress. We definitely have work to do on the chart of accounts and the separation of cap and non-cap and some of that kind of stuff, for sure. And but again, we appreciate all the time and patience you've spent with us, and we continue to be dedicated to getting it better and better each and every season.
Yeah, no, and I would agree with that statement, Mr. Mayor. You can tell the general attitude is that the town does want to improve and continually make adjustments to meet these standards. And I appreciate the help of Dan and Chris and Wes, and they've been great to work with. So you will make progress, I know it. So.
Chris, you're really breaking up for some reason. Did you guys hear her clearly? Maybe it's just me. Try again, Chris. Is anyone else having trouble with hearing Chris?
I can't hear her at all.
She's garbled.
Very garbled.
I changed my microphone. Is that any better?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, now it is. Yeah, much better. You're good, Chris. Go ahead. Got better for a minute. Nothing? Okay, I don't know what happened.
Should we move on to
Okay, well, thank you. Yeah, is there anything else you need from me at this time, or?
We'll let you go, Amy. We can always get you back.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you so much. Have a good night.
No, can you hear me now?
No, it's not any better.
I'm gonna grab them and
Maybe try to call in. Sometimes that works where you call in separately, but can still watch on the video.
Yeah, I'm not sure what's going on with your side, Chris, because everybody else seems to be coming through clearly.
I don't know if you saw the chat, but she just said she's going to drop off and rejoin.
Okay. I didn't see that.
Jake's discussion is very on topic, so he may actually be able to answer the questions.
All right. So let's go ahead and we're going to jump up to item 2, which is the financials. So let me share that. I got to change my share because I have a new document for that.
Mayor, do you just want me to drive?
That's fine if you don't mind, Jake. I'm happy to let you drive.
Can you guys see that?
We can.
Okay. Well, thanks for letting me be here and present the budget report for the first 3 quarters of the year. I think it is relevant to the discussion that we're having. So I prepared a quick budget report that I used in Vineyard at my time there, just modified it to Hideout's chart of accounts and pulled all the details over from Polaris. There's one modification that I've made to these numbers from the general ledger report, and that is the sales tax number. So on this sheet here, I brought in the number that there's $30,000 that hasn't actually been received in cash yet by the town, but it's due to the town. So that's the only modification from the general ledger. But before I dive into the numbers too much, I'll give you an overview of this report so that you can look into it on your own time. Feel free to reach out to me with any questions that you have if anything does come up. So the first tab here is a summary tab. So the Hideout budget summary tab. This compiles all of the accounts into categories on both the revenue and the expense side. And ultimately, this is the approval that the town council gives management each year. You approve it at kind of an account level detail. They're grouped into accounts. So like the admin department, you guys are approving that 220,862. Now within that admin department, the management is spending money on different things like utilities, payroll, just day-to-day operational expenses for the town. And so if you want those details within this admin fund, you would click on the Hideout budget analysis tab of the worksheet, and you could get the actual details for those expenditures here. So you can see down at the bottom of this that category total administration is that 220,862, and it will tie to the budget tab here. So the first column here is the budget for the year. The second column is the actual to date. So this is the general ledger report through March 31st. So it's 2 weeks behind, but it gives you the first 3 quarters of the year. It looks at how far you are through the year. So we're 75% of the way through the fiscal year. You compare that with the percentage of revenue or expenditure for the year, and then that will calculate a projection for what you'll anticipate, assuming that it's a consistent revenue item and assuming it's a consistent expense item. It will calculate what that year-end projection is. So if you want to dive into the revenues, the general fund revenue budget line is $1,783,502. Your actual to date is just under $1.2 million. So we're at 67% of the year, or we're at 67% for the year, but we're 75% of the way through the year. So we would anticipate that you'd end just a little bit shy of what our total budget was for the revenue amount for the year. And then on the expense side, most of the accounts you can see are well below the budgeted amount, but there are 3 that are over. And so I'll talk about those specifically. Of the 220 in administration, most of that is tied to payroll costs. And so Jan and I will be working on an allocation to see exactly what we'll need to finish the year. And that will be presented to the town council in a few weeks in a budget adjustment. The streets money, or the streets fund, is here. And I don't know that I paid really close attention to why that one's over, but we can jump into it here and look. So it looks like it's again a payroll item, and then some maintenance. But for the most part, it's a payroll cost as well. So Jan and I will look at that while we're looking at the admin fund.
Let me just jump in
Yeah.
for a second. Sorry. So I've got, when this budget was put together, we didn't have Tim or Daniel as part of the town. So that's aid we've added, and Stefan. So we've added public works and engineering resources to the town. We have reduced costs from TO with that, but so there's some costs there that aren't there. And the other thing is that we now have professionals developing a professional budget for coming year. So this time we'll have we won't have $1,200 for car repair. Which should have never happened in the first place.
Yeah, so, but for the most part, the expenditure items, I mean, in my time with the town, you guys have been getting consistently better year over year at this budget. And even when I was managing Vineyard, we had consistent budget adjustments. We would typically plan for a budget adjustment every year in January, just because of the nature of a growing city and a growing town. You really don't know. You can make your best guess, but you're budgeting a year in advance at times, year and a half at some points, I guess. But unless you had a crystal ball, budget adjustments are pretty typical for growing towns and cities. So with these quarterly budget reports that we plan to deliver to the city or to the town council every quarter, you'll know further in advance when a budget adjustment is going to be necessary. So I think that's part of the reason why they're required, so that you don't get caught off guard near the end of the year, and you can kind of keep your finger on the pulse throughout the year as the town operates.
Can you define for the council what debt service is specifically?
So your debt service is, I believe the only thing it's for is for town hall. You have a bond payment that's due every year for town hall. And it looks like we under budgeted just slightly. So it won't be any higher than that. That's why you see the year end projected amount at 26,962.
We have a skid steer too, but.
Is that in this account as well?
I believe it is. That's.
Okay, I thought that was a lease on a different line item, but I could be mistaken there.
Okay.
So we'll have to take a look at that.
I think we bought it on I think it is a buy with a 5-year payoff.
It's
okay.
Capital lease with a $1 payout.
Well, we'll take a look at that. If that's included in this debt service account, then we'll adjust the year-end projected amount. And we'll adjust the budget accordingly as well. So, but if you look at the total numbers for the year, you're at $1.1 million in to-date revenue and just over $860,000 in to-date expenses. So at this point, if the fiscal year ended today, you'd be $330,000 above, kind of in the black. And then our projections are $1.6 million for revenue and $1.1 million for expenses. Again, this is assuming like a straight line application of revenues and expenses. So It won't end at these numbers, definitely, but it gives you a good idea of where you're headed for the year. So the town's headed in a good direction, where revenues are above expenses.
So Jake, sorry, one thing, if you go back up to the revenue side. So for things like taxes, I mean, they get paid out once and then they're done, right? I mean, there's not much left coming in on taxes, is there? Other than sales tax?
Yeah, so for property tax, that's the case. So you would collect it once a year and it's done. So you do collect small amounts the rest of the year.
Yeah,
but
I mean,
majority
energy tax is a monthly thing. Yeah, you're right. Okay.
right.
Okay.
And sales tax is a monthly thing. So you could adjust this number to like a 220. And that would probably be more accurate. But the other revenue items in this tax account are monthly revenue accounts.
Okay.
So that's the general fund. I'm happy to answer any questions that there are. I do anticipate looking at these numbers, that we will have a budget adjustment presented to the town council in the coming weeks.
Hey, Jake.
Yeah, if the council remembers that the municipal accounting rules require that we have to modify the budget amounts for categories to match is within reason, within a certain percentage of the actual spending. So you just can't have the budget and then come in at 150%. You have to adjust the budget and then come in 50% less on something else. So that's what that budget adjustment will.
I mean, the audit finding today was because you had one of these kind of, like, say the admin one here, you had a budget of 220 and you ended the year at 275. You just can't come in above that amount. So if you know that you're going to go over budget in a certain category, you need to do a budget adjustment before the end of the year and have it approved before the end of the year, or else you will get a finding for that.
It doesn't mean we spend any money any differently. It just means the budget has to better match. We've been through this a couple of times with this council, so I think they're all pretty familiar with the process at this point.
Yeah.
I just want to put that out as a reminder.
Ralph, it looked like you had a question.
Yeah, a couple of things, mostly on the big differentials here, so if you look at the property taxes, even if they come in at 220, that's we're still talking, about 45% increase. And then so that's a piece that if we could drill into that, and maybe it's not here, maybe this is part of the budget committee's work, but some of those numbers are that, do we expect that to be consistent going forward? What percentage of that addition is partial property tax payment, things like that, so we have a better idea going forward. For obviously for homeowners that bought mid-year or something like that, then we can actually expect more revenue in the ensuing year. If you consider, 50% of your buyers came in before the middle of the year versus 50% of your buyers, assuming it was a straight line, approach. The other thing is on the building permits. So that was a nice increase on property taxes. On the building permits, it looks like we're going to come in about 29% lower from my calculation here. So that's a change. I mean, overall, we've got a positive, but can we reflect on those two numbers and get a little bit more clarity as to what's driving that? And if we don't, I'd say that should be part of the budget committee's responsibility.
Yeah, so as I went through these numbers and I was preparing the report, I kind of put notes in there as well on those counts to see why they were different than we were expecting. My kind of philosophy with budgeting for a town is you budget for the revenue amounts as conservatively as you possibly can. So you obviously need money to run the town and to grow, but you don't want to utilize one-time revenues to fund ongoing expenses, and you don't want to overestimate where your budget's going to come in at. So when I was talking to Jan, it sounds like the wintertime, specifically in Hideout, is just by nature of where you guys are, your building permits do slow down. They slow down statewide, but I think, where you guys are higher in elevation, it probably has a more drastic impact on Hideout than it does other towns. And so you would anticipate that as the spring hits and as a lot of these construction activities start, that you will get a bump in the spring. And so we're not necessarily anticipating that the ending building permit number is going to be 536. It'll be probably higher than that. But I do think that this year we probably did overestimate what the building permit fees were going to be.
So for that particular one, Jake, I mean, that number was basically a straight line calculation based on whatever the budgeted number of permits were. So I think the thing we want to look at when we peel that back is how many permits do we have year to date, and how many permits do we have budgeted? See what's going on, because I'm pretty sure we did not reduce our permit fees.
Yeah,
in fact, we raised them.
It doesn't.
So.
You're right, Mayor. You're right in that. And I think I don't think I was super involved with the budget process last year, but I do remember the conversation that at the time, a lot of the expenses that were associated with building permit revenue were consulting fees. And so it didn't really matter where you budgeted that line item at, because you either had the revenue and the expense, or you had neither. It's not like you had a bunch of in-house staff that were reliant on those building permit numbers. And so at the time, we kind of just made an estimate on what we anticipated for the year.
If I remember, the year before, our actuals were about 175 to 180 in actual permits, and then we budgeted about 150, or the expectations, we ratcheted that down like 15%. That was that's roughly the numbers, give or take a few, that if I recall correctly. So I guess we just want, if we can improve our accuracy of projection, that would help on both of those big numbers, because they're big numbers.
Yep. And I gave Jan a spreadsheet I used when I was in Vineyard that will track your sales tax and property tax over time. And as you put more data in there, and as you use that spreadsheet over time, your accuracy will definitely improve on the tax side. On the building permit side, it really is like a shot in the dark. I mean, you can guess, but the developers are in control of the permit revenue. You could probably go recruit new developers or more people to move to Hideout.
We talked to them, and they gave us numbers last year, and we discounted it a bit. But I just want to see where we are count wise.
Yeah.
So if we take that forward, I mean, that's a number Carol can pull very quickly, or anybody from our city inspect system. How many permits have we issued year to date? I go back and see how many were in the budget calculation.
This is actually an allocation issue, because we came in over our estimated permits. It just happens that we accounted for fees to Mustang, impact fees, which is actually a legal settlement, and made an adjustment from there, and we're still trying to allocate it correctly. So this is somewhat of a reporting error.
Okay. Oh, so the impact fee was in the budget number?
Yes, the impact fees that we paid Mustang, and then it's
So that has, so we have to adjust both sides. Okay.
Yes.
Gotcha.
So you've got, outside the general fund, there's 3 other funds. You've got the COVID-19 fund, you've got the Class C road fund, and the water utility fund that kind of runs the enterprise funds of the city, or the town, sorry. And I didn't see really any concerns in those accounts. The expenditures for the COVID-19 fund are the contract with the sheriff's office. Class C road funds.
I think we had something with the fire department as well, fire district
Yeah.
in there a little bit.
So, and the way Jan and I talked, and those are annual invoices that you pay, so you would expect those to come in at the end of the year.
Yeah.
And then Class C road funds, you can utilize that revenue that comes from the state to improve roads, repair roads, things like that.
So had they not come, and it seems like a very significant difference from a budget expectation of $78,000 to actually only receiving 30.
Yeah. So with this is a number that's similar to the sales tax number. You haven't collected anything yet this year. They've been on hold. Those funds have. So your number that you're due is higher than this, but I couldn't find that number in the report. So I'm not exactly sure. The Class C road revenue is fairly consistent month after month. And they do distributions every other month. So you're missing probably 2 or 3 distributions, probably 2 distributions. And so the number is a little bit higher, but I do think that we over budgeted the Class C road fund.
Okay.
So, and then you got the water utility fund, that one looks good. But the process that we'll go through is Jan and I will work with your staff to evaluate what we need to finish out the fiscal year. And then we'll get a budget adjustment put together and we'll present that in a town council meeting. And you guys will have that in advance and be able to review that in advance. So if you have any questions, we can chat with you about it. We'll make sure to tighten up all of these projections. It's a lot easier when you're a little closer to it, where we've only got a couple months left in the fiscal year. We can tighten up those projections and be a lot more accurate than we were a year ago.
Okay. Well, thanks, Jacob, for all your hard work on this, and Jan. This is the most readable, understandable budget view we've had since I've been mayor. So we're definitely making progress. As far as not the budget creation, but the actual spending analysis is actually the kind of views that we've been after for quite some time. So I think it's come a long way. I think Ralph, even you'll have to agree, it's come a long way.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And I'm happy to say
looks much better from the last 2 years, but
we're putting money in the budget to totally restructure our financial processes, which is just something we need to do. We fixed public works, and now it's time to properly staff our financial department, and Jacob is on board to help us do that, and I'm really happy he's here.
Yeah. So this is, as you all know, finding people is difficult right about now in every area, and every business, everywhere. And we have been recruiting for some additional talent in the finance team for quite some time, and we're having a tough time like everybody else. So, but Jan's been making good progress. We've got some great help from folks like Jacob, and we're going to get it done.
Okay, well, that's my report. If you guys have any questions, Mayor and Jan both have my email address and phone number. I'm happy to answer any questions that come up.
Thank you.
I gotta put some
kids to
bed, so if there's no questions for me, I'm gonna step out.
That's fine. Go ahead, Jacob. We'll put it all on Jan if something else comes up.
Well, thank you.
Thanks. Okay, so I think you're seeing my screen. It says hopefully. So that was 2 and 3. The next one is the Wildland Urban Interface Code, and it's Appendix C. We do have, I think they're still with us. Troy seems to be on anyway. Clint seems to be on. So we got a couple of members of the Fire District here with us as well. Cameron, are you still on as well? Because I know you've been working on this with yeah, you're on with Tim and others. Tim's away on holiday this week, so he's not here to talk about it. So maybe you can bring the council up to speed on the discussions that went on with the various folks who had interest in reviewing the code and making some language adjustments and so forth. Cameron, you're not coming through for some reason. You're unmute. You're not muted, but we're not hearing you. Nope. See your mouth moving, but I'm not reading your lips very well. Okay, and now you're gone.
I still see him, but I don't.
I see him, but he's not on the participant list anymore.
No.
Oh, there he is. He's up top. Okay. Nope. Sorry, Cameron. I don't know what's going on. Why don't you click mute and unmute again and see what happens? Testing 1, 2, 3.
I can introduce it while he's trying to get on if you'd like.
Okay. Okay.
So I know that a lot of work has been done with the what we like to call the WUI. It was presented sent out and to all the HOAs in town. I believe there was a community meeting as well. What is in the packet is a copy of the 2006 version, which is the only version that the state will allow municipalities to adopt. And so there's just a slight, the ordinance should say as amended, because there were some amendments made based on input, as well as amendments to Appendix C. And, this is supported. I don't know if the fire district wants to jump in and talk about the value of the WUI while Cameron's still getting on.
Can you hear me yet?
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Oh, goodness. Sorry about that. I don't know what happened. So we met with Mr. Rudder from his concerns about the last meeting. We had a number of written comments. So I took those written comments and made some changes, and then we met as a group with a couple of the council members and the fire district and talked through the changes. And so if you want, if I can share my screen, I can highlight them, or I can just kind of tell you the pages where the highlights are.
By all means, you can share away.
I sort of am hesitant to do that given my other technical challenges, but we'll give it a try.
Well, I can share it, and if it doesn't, there you go.
Are you seeing the Wasatch Fire District?
Yeah, we're seeing defensible space.
Okay, perfect. So the first couple of pages of this are from the fire districts explaining, sort of the defensible space and the areas. The Wildland interface or Wildland Urban Interface Code starts on the third page after that heading. And we just made a couple of minor edits, and it was just to sort of clarify how the code applied and the retroactivity, etc. So this paragraph, just a couple of minor codes to indicate that it only applies to conditions arising after the adoption of the code, and does not apply to conditions that were legally in existence at the adoption of the code. But if it was not permitted or not lawfully existing, then the code would govern that. So minor change there. The next section was really to change the definitions. Is that visible, all of that?
Yep. We're seeing all the red line.
Okay, the next section was to change the definition of existing properties, buildings, structures, or conditions, because the code mentions a number of those structures. And we just, rather than going through the code and changing all of the sections that referred to retroactivity, we figured it would be cleaner just to define what the existing properties or structures are. And so this just clarifies that it only applies to conditions going forward. The one exception to that is this second paragraph. If somebody gets a permit to remodel a home or to excavate their yard, anything that requires a permit, the code would then apply to whatever the permitted work was. And so it's just meant to apply going forward, and then to catch any work that is changed or completed after the implementation of the code. Then the other definition, the code mentions non-fire resistant vegetation quite frequently, and to a lesser extent mentions fire resistant vegetation. We just thought it would be better to put a definition of all of that in here. And so this is just some general guidelines on how people can interpret what they can put in their yard and what plants they shouldn't put. And we are going to work on a more definitive list of that with the fire district and the town and anyone that's interested in being involved in that. We just didn't have time to get that done for the code to be implemented, and so we felt like it was more important to get the preventative measures that are in the code in place, and we can fix the more definite specifics of the fire resistant vegetation later on. The next section where we talked about were the address markers. There was quite a bit of discussion on what type of markers would work, what types would be preferable. It really came down to the public safety aspect of it from the fire district. They wanted to be able to have the first responders find an address quickly. And so rather than get into specifics of what type of marker and all of that, what we decided on the language is the address just needs to be clearly visible from the driveway. Whether it's marked at the driveway or whether it's on the house, as long as it's visible from the driveway, that's going to give first responders the easiest way to locate the house in an emergency and identify which house and address they're going to. And then the last section that I highlighted isn't actually a change, but I wanted to highlight the language because this is the section that we really didn't get a chance to resolve. And so rather than try and reword this section, because there are some pretty specific safety issues that the fire district has with changing this language, what we want to come up with are more a list of trees that are fire resistant and less of a hazard, and a way to figure out how those could be spaced within the defensible space rather than just restricting trees completely within the defensible space. And so we feel like there's some work to do there. The fire district provided a couple of resources listing fire resistant trees. And so the intent is, even with passing this code, is to follow up shortly and fix this section to reflect more accurately what we want the tree situation to be.
Okay.
And I think that was it. Oh, and then these additions to Appendix C, the changes were there the last time it was introduced. It was just a couple of clarifications on how the hazard of the property is evaluated.
Right. Well, I want to thank you, Cameron, for your patience and efforts on this, as well as the rest of the team. And I guess, Polly, you were saying that we're adopting the code with our amendments. It's 2006 code with the amendments, and that's not going to put us out of sync with the state.
That's permitted. So we would just ask that if you do choose to adopt it, it should say is hereby adopted as amended, as shown in Exhibit A.
Thank you. Guys have questions? I mean, we were close on this last time, and we got kind of down into the detail interpretation of the language, and we put a team on it to work on it and try and clean that up, and I think they did that very successfully from what we just saw. So I think again, appreciations to those that helped with that process. And now it's a matter of, do you have questions, or are you interested in?
So I just want to thank Cameron for all his hard work. It was a really productive meeting the other day, and I feel like he made some really great changes. So thank you.
Thanks.
So I know one question that came up was, the specifics of the master development agreement specified allowable plants. And I think you heard Cameron saying from the adjustment standpoint, we've done some high-level discussion on defining, what are more fire resistant versus non-fire resistant, and they said they will want to do some. They will continue to do some more work. This has been shown to all the HOAs several times now, so they can't state that they haven't seen it or heard about it or talked about it. They've given a chance to give feedback. So it's really now down to, does the council feel like we've socialized it enough and are prepared to pass it or vote on it at least, or not?
Well, I can speak up there if my audio is working again.
It is. Thank you, Chris. Nice to have you back.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I wanna thank Clint also for his work alongside Cameron, and then the folks that were involved, including Sherry, in the the additional meeting that we had covering this. I'm very comfortable with it now. I do want to echo something Clint did say during that meeting, is that sure, we can come up with a list of fire resistant plants, but the truth is everything can burn, right? There is no such thing as a plant that doesn't burn. So I love the fact that we're going to go back and get to the kind of detail that I think our design review committee and the HOA rules are probably looking for, a specific list of allowable trees, which is what they have now for their landscape plan. So I do think there's a little bit of work to do there, but I'm very comfortable with this in its current form.
I just have one question. Have you gotten any feedback at all from the HOAs that you've given it to?
Carol, we actually had meetings, face-to-face meetings with the HOAs. Okay, so there was conversation. They went through this. We didn't get any feedback in the meetings from the HOA participants that they had any real issues with the intent. We've received no new mailings from them since the last time this was reviewed with them. So I mean, I don't know what else we can do.
Okay,
It wasn't just sent to them. It was presented to them in person or in Zoom or whatever, but it was presented and talked about. So they had adequate opportunity to read and understand it.
Yeah, Carol, I think I know what your concern could be about the HOAs, but given the fact that they've had an opportunity to, in person to, weigh in on this, et cetera, I don't think there's been any feedback at all. Correct me if I'm wrong, Mayor, but I don't recall any particular HOA feedback.
There were questions for clarification that came up. Cameron, you were in some of those, I know. I don't think anybody threw up on it for being Sorry for the poor analogy. But
Okay. And the individual homeowners, you know, the single family homes that aren't part of an HOA.
Oh, Carol, they are. We are. We're part of the master HOA. So
Okay.
yeah, so we're subject to, you know, community preservation associations,
Right.
rules and regulations as well.
Okay.
I think there had been some concern about current conditions that were expressed. You know, there are actually some existing conifers that are really close to houses that are definitely closer than 10 feet, or in the defensible space too close together. So there are some existing conditions that are, you know, not conforming, but on the other hand, at this point we have so much projected growth. This is exactly the time for us to pass this ordinance adopting the WUI, so that we can, you know, not continue to make the same mistakes and position the town in a, you know, in a better place for, you know, to address our potential wildfire threats.
Right.
all right, anything else? Any questions? Any other questions? I guess is what I meant to say. So, anything else? If not, I would like to get a motion to consider the adoption of an ordinance adopting Title 10, Chapter 10.05 of the Utah Wildland Urban Interface Code 2006 as presented and amended as shown in Exhibit A tonight.
So moved.
And I will second.
Chris. Thank you, Carol. Sherry?
Yes,
vote?
I vote yes.
Support that. Thank you. Ralph?
Yeah, based upon all the due diligence, I think, great job. So my vote is yes.
Thank you. Carol?
Yes.
Thank you. Chris?
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you, council. Thanks to the fire folks that were on patiently tonight. And although you didn't speak, I know you worked really hard on this, and I'm sure that you're thrilled that we've figured this out. So thanks again for all your help and all the help that you do for the town of Hideout. You guys have been great, and they're a real pleasure to work with, and we're really, really happy that you're on board with us. Okay. We'll go to item 5. Polly, this one's on you. I think we talked about this before, and I thought we agreed to this, but was this just a modification because we talked about modifying the language?
Yeah, so basically what happened was we made that modification. We brought it back to GSSD. GSSD said that they felt like, well, let's just make it 1/3 all the way across. So they made amendments to it so that each of us would only, so GCD had initially, that was agreed to, they were going to pay 1/3. And then these last modifications, before it said we would pay no more than 1/3. And these last modifications say we'll each pay 1/3. As part of this, you know, there's been some back and forth about impact fees that are owed by the town. I spoke with their attorney today, and we have a letter that we're expecting from them, which says that all the impact fees related to the Brock Bank, I think it's Deer Waters, and GCD are taken care of and are resolved. And we also got a commitment from them that we would speak with our accounting people would speak with their accounting people early next week to resolve anything else that is outstanding. So what I would recommend is, if the council is good with it, that you authorize the mayor to sign this agreement, but we hold off that until next week to actually have the mayor sign it until all these other issues are resolved. But we expect them to be resolved hopefully by next week. And kind of the push to get this done is that GCD has been waiting to have this resolved before we would issue meters. And so they have their check all set. And so we didn't want to wait another month.
Council, do you understand the questions for Polly around what she's just went through?
Yeah, I
Anything
do.
need to be clarified?
Yeah, I do. And I certainly support that idea that we, you can hold off on actually signing it, but we can go ahead and approve it today. Because I do understand the nature of GCD being anxious to get going.
Sorry. Did you get your question answered, Chris? I'm sorry.
Oh, yeah, I'm good. I'm ready to move
right.
forward with this.
Other council members with questions or concerns for Polly? Okay. Then I would need a motion to authorize the mayor to finalize and sign the agreement with JSSD regarding to the related to the settlement of impact fees due to JSSD. Once we sort out all of the items that Polly took us through tonight.
So moved.
Thank you.
I'll second.
Is that, who was the second? I'm sorry.
Sherry.
Sherry, thanks, Sherry. Okay. All right, Ralph. How do you
Yes.
feel? Thank you. Carol,
Yes.
thank you. Sherry,
Yes.
Chris.
Yes.
Perfect, thanks. All right. I guess we're doing okay. I'm just trying to keep track of the time here since I know it's but we're still plowing through. We've lost a lot of people. It's just pretty much us working folks now on the list. But okay. So the next one is discussion possible adoption of a public infrastructure district policy. There were some questions last time, whether we had the right version, et cetera, et cetera. Jan sent this out to, I don't know, Jan, do you want to take us quickly through what been modified from the versions they had seen earlier?
Yes.
This looks like a red line version, but I'm not seeing the red line.
So the red line version went out and the new version, the council or the Economic Development Committee met, discussed this with Aaron, the attorney, And we made the changes after discussion of what we should implement. And we came up with the 10% or the 10 mils. And we made the changes to the document, and this is the final draft. The final version is prior to this redlined version.
So you want to talk a little bit about this, because we had a lot of discussion about this 10 mil target last time. And particularly the language here. But all right, so basically the language says it could be less than 10 mils, but it can't be more.
Correct.
That's the way I'm reading it, correct?
There is a provision that we can add more for certain, if there's something that we wanted to incentivize, we could work in a special agreement, but basically it's a 10 mils cap.
So, Jan, just to make sure I understand, a 10 mil translates to, you have $1 million assessed value of property, then you would pay $10,000 additional taxes for the PID if it was, if we, that was if we chose to use the maximum rate.
Yes, that's roughly the calculation. So it will fluctuate depending on the property value.
But was that
$10,000 per million
for $1 million for $1 million values, $10,000?
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yes.
I feel that I just for gut feel it feels like a lot of money, as a taxpayer. When I think
I guess. Go ahead, Chris. Sorry.
Yeah, that's okay. It just feels like a lot of money as a taxpayer. I'm trying to get my head around that a little bit, considering the very, very low rate we actually pay, in our property taxes to the town, but knowing that if there was some public infrastructure created in that PID, if we did adopt or, authorize a public infrastructure district, then they could charge up to $10,000 per $1 million of assessed value on a home. That feels like a lot of money.
I guess I would relate that. Hang on, Ralph. Sorry, I was trying to get something in here. So I guess I would relate that to an impact fee, and a $10,000 impact fee is what people are paying right now for new homes in the pre-existing hideout. So, and PID basically replaces the impact fee. So I'm not sure if that outrageous, Chris, or not.
This is annually though, isn't it? Whereas that impact fee is a one-time dealio when you get your permit. This is an annual tax, isn't it? For 30 years or whatever the duration would be.
It is.
Yeah, by the way, on the calculations, I'm not sure that's correct, Jan. So $1 million with 10 mils. So we're at 8 mils for $1 million, which is $823. So 10 mils would be $1,000. So I think we're an order of magnitude off, but
it's $1 it's $1 per thousand. A mil is $1 per thousand of a property's assessed value. So
1,000 times 1,000 is
so 10 mils would be $10 per thousand, and $1 million is 1,000, so it'd be $10,000. But a mil is $1 per thousand.
I stand corrected. Thank you.
So it's $1,000. How is that 10,000?
Yeah, that's right. It's $1,000.
So you guys were saying it was 10,000. It's not.
No, it's $1 per thousand.
Okay, thank you, Ralph. That makes
Yeah.
me feel a whole lot
Yeah,
better.
That's why I
Okay.
said we were in order, literally an order of magnitude off.
Had an
It's
extra
really-
zero
Yeah,
there.
so-
Yeah, it's really easy.
So it's
to do that.
$1,000.
All
Yeah,
right.
just think, just think
All right.
about the fact that we pay 8.23 mils on $1 million. So 10 mils is, and so that would be $823. in
Thank you,
taxes.
Ralph.
Yeah, okay.
All right. So suddenly $1,000 a year doesn't seem like, so it didn't seem bad at all. So I'm good now. Appreciate that.
Just again, Chris, as another reference number, people who have houses in or properties in Soaring Hawk or Golden Eagle are paying between $1,200 and $2,400 a year, depending on their property size up there for the hideout district charge.
Yeah, yeah, okay.
Just
I'm
so
also
you know.
paying for the administration of the hideout district charge.
Well, we are all paying for that.
Right.
On top of that, they're paying an additional $1,200 to $2,400.
Yeah, so Chris, if we think about this another way, so roughly it could double what you're already paying. So if our standard rate was around $823, if you paid $1,000, it'd be just a little bit, over double what the standard rate is, which is, reasonable. 10,000 would be, I'm not sure I'd buy that. I'd buy into that either. Yeah. So anyway, that's another way to kind of look at things here.
Great. Thank you, Ralph. Isn't nearly as painful as I was thinking. Okay. So yeah, I think I don't recall how you came up with the rate of 10 mil, but it seems reasonable to me now.
It was the median of all the towns we looked at. So it was the most common number. It wasn't the average, which might have been a little bit lower, but it gave us a little bit of buffer for increased amenities. So for developers who are coming in with more amenities, it gave us a little bit of room to go up. Plus it was the most median number as well across other towns. So that was kind of how we came up with that.
Okay, thank you. I guess the other, sorry, Mayor, the other question I have is if a project did come our way and the council or the town and the council thought it would be important before authorizing a public infrastructure district to perhaps amend this to raise the mill rate, we could certainly do that in a future meeting if that's what council wanted to do. That's correct, right? We're settling on a policy here, but the policy, could change in the future.
Yeah, within the limits of the law, yes. If the law, since the law allows as much as 15 mils, and we decided that that's the nature of the cost of infrastructure was requiring that, we could always come back and amend.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Best of my understanding of the rules on this. This is not a one-time permanent, it happens to be a policy, or it's a policy, it's not a,
right.
So this is what we're working under, so we can always amend policy as we learn more. So if we do the first one and nobody wants to buy it because we set it at 10 and then don't want to spend the extra $1,000, we'll learn something from it.
Okay, that was the only thing I had been struggling with last time was, that rate, but I think I'm good now.
Okay. Other questions from council?
could you go back to the very, very beginning? The very of the, right, can you make it a little bit bigger?
I can.
Thank you.
I'm working on it, you know.
Okay, there. Okay. Keep going down. Okay, stop. All of the requirements under, go back up just a little bit at the beginning of A, okay. Okay. My question was, as I went through it, the numbers that are listed, they're options, right? They're not each one is required. We look at this and we consider like B, we consider C, and so on and so forth. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, not everybody's going to have the same needs and infrastructure.
Right.
Right. So it's, you know, it's going to be, these are all the elements that should be addressed. So if we're putting in, you know, if we're going into an existing area and we're tying into existing infrastructure, you know, it may be very different than if they're having to build, you know, an entire waste management system, for example.
Right. So we
versus just sewer pipes.
So each of these PIDs would then be structured for each individual development. Is that correct? And these are things that we would look at.
Exactly. If a developer wanted to come in with a PID, they'd have to bring forward why they think it's appropriate, how they're doing. I mean, it's essentially it's a different way to collect an impact fee with this new policy, right? And they'd have to make a case that the town agrees that the things that they are putting in are reasonable and customary to put into a PID, right?
Right.
So if they said, you know, we want to do this because we all want to buy new boats, you know, so we want you know, as a result of this, we want to buy new boats, you know, we would probably say it's not an appropriate use of a PID. So I would hope that's what we would say. Whereas if you're saying it's just because I'm spending, you know, $13 million on underground lines and, you know, terracing the landscape to improve the view sheds and blah, 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 blah. We would say, okay, it might be reasonable to expect that the buyers of property up there would expect to have to pay for all those things that are being put in.
Okay.
Okay. So this is, I mean, this is intended to be a all-encompassing, you know, this could be the same thing that could be used on a, you know, 200,000 square foot of commercial that could be used, you know, and also the same policy would be used for, you know, a residential development with a park and a playground. So it forces us to ask the questions. You know, as again, this was provided to us with the assistance of legal counsel who works in this space and have done these for other kinds of other communities, and said, you know, our experience is these are the questions you should ask, these are the things you should look for.
Okay, great.
And again, so here's the criteria, Carol. You know, it has to be provide public benefit. And those are some of the things that we picked from our general plan that are in here.
Perfect. Okay.
And we look at them on a case-by-case basis and make decisions that they're things we want, bringing things that bring value for the community, or they don't. And this statement here is very, very good. Right? So basically, you know, by doing the PID, it says that they can't come back and say, you know, we want an impact fee as well. Okay, other questions on the PID policies? This is, I think, our third time through. And again, remind that this is a policy. It's not a, it's neither a resolution nor an ordinance. It's simply where the town's adopting a policy that becomes what the development staff will use when evaluating somebody who wants to bring forward a proposal for a PID. So I guess at this point, I'd like to get your position on whether or not you're comfortable for us adopting this as policy. And I need to get that started. I need a motion to consider the adoption of a public infrastructure district policy.
Yeah, also move.
I'll
Thank you, Ralph.
second.
Thank you, Chris. All right. Sherry,
Yes.
thank you. Carol,
Yes.
thank you. Chris,
Yes.
thank you. Ralph,
Yes.
thank you. So thank you all for all of your great input and thoughts on this, and appreciate that that you put the effort into working your way through it and understanding it, because there's a bit of complexity here, but I'm glad we got this done. It sets a standard for how we evaluate should someone come forward with one. So, okay, so the next two are closely related. Polly, you want to help us help everybody understand the why we're doing it this way?
Yeah, so
Conflict of interest, which is a, yeah, go ahead, sorry.
so what we've attached here is just what I thought was a great summary of overview of powers and duties, and includes also ethics on the first page. And it's dated, it's 2016, but it mirrors actually quite well the powers and duties handbook that the league gives out. And I've checked, there's no major changes to this law. We've attached that, as well as the municipal, the state code on ethics for officials, as well as for employees. And then what we have is just so that's just background for you to look at. And then what we have is the conflict of interest policy, which we are asking you to adopt here tonight. And as you can see, we have that on the policy itself is on the first 2 pages. And then we would like you to, at least annually, or when something changes, update it so that it's clear, so that you are being transparent about any possible conflicts of interest and just disclosure. So this is a summary of the state code. And I also base this off of the state auditor has a template. I kind of changed it a little bit, I thought, to mirror the state code a little bit better. But I just wanted to make that clear. We're also going to we should have all employees fill this out as well as contract employees. So I will fill this out as well as some of your, Thomas and other contract employees, as well as the planning commission. And this is just a really good practice. It'll also help you with your audit. And it's just very straightforward. So we would ask that you adopt the policy and then also fill out the conflict of interest form and do so in the next 2 weeks. And since it maybe is just easier, we have them as separate items, but the ethical behavior policy, this comes directly from the auditor's website with a few slight changes. Again, this should help you with your audit, with some of that separation, and also filling out a pledge gives you points towards your audit. And it's a good idea to just remind ourselves of what the rules are. So some of it is repetitive of the conflict of interest, but then there's additional parts of this, which also you'll find in the municipal ethics code section in the state code. And so we would also ask that you review this policy, adopt it, and then fill out the pledge. And I believe the auditor likes us to fill that out annually.
Yep, they do.
Any questions or?
I just want to say, sounds good to me. I'm all for disclosure and understanding conflicts of interest. I think we should be as transparent as possible.
Totally agree, Chris. That's why we're working hard on getting this available for us, not just to meet the audit requirements, but because I think it's critical for the community to know that that we're all thinking about the community interests and not our own interests. I mean, we make that pledge and we take the pledge of office, but this is a great tool to help everybody be reminded that we're here for the right reasons.
As I recall, that was your platform when you ran for mayor the first time.
Yep.
One of your platform items.
One of my platform points, yeah.
Yep.
Could I ask that, because I have a bad computer, or not computer, but printer. Could you make this a small packet and have it available at the town hall, and can we come in and sign it?
Sure.
Is that possible? I mean, or maybe I'm the only one that needs that, but yeah, I think it's great. I'm totally happy to do it. But yeah, if you could have it there, I'll come in and sign it.
Carol, I'm with you. I have a
Alicia.
bad printer as well.
Okay.
Okay. So I'm not going to suggest that the town buy you printers because that would be unethical.
No, and I don't want you to, but I'm just saying that.
But Alicia, if we pass this tonight, Alicia, would you make a note to reach out to counselors and see who needs hard copy documents, and we'll print them at town hall and make them available to you.
Yep, you bet.
Yeah, I don't like to print things in general.
Yeah.
I don't do well with paper.
Okay, so at least Chris and I are going to come in and sign it at town hall. I don't know about the other council members.
You can pick it up and sign it, or bring it back too. But anyway, that's fine. So I guess what I'm hearing is that in general, we seem to be supportive of adopting we don't actually have the language in here, Polly, on 7 as far as adopting.
I think it's close enough that this is the
disclosure for, but basically I'm going to combine both 7 and 8 and ask for a motion to support the adoption of the conflict of interest policy and be willing to sign a disclosure form as well as adopting the ethics policy and to sign the pledge.
I so move.
Thank you, Carol.
I'll second.
Thank you, Sharon. Ralph,
Yes.
you're supportive of that? Okay. Chris,
Yes.
you're supportive of that? Okay. Sherry,
Yes.
okay, and Carol.
Yes.
All right.
And I would like to commend the mayor because, as you said, this wasn't related to the audit or anything along those lines. This has been a priority for the mayor to get this done. And he's pushed it to make sure that it comes before you and it's adopted. So.
Thank you both. Thank you, Polly, and thank you all for that. I mean, again, I have high confidence that we're all working hard to do the right thing for the town. And this is just a great reminder. So don't just sign it, read it. So it reminds us that, because in this day and age, weird things can be considered, unethical or questionable. So just want you to go and make us all think before we go have a meeting somewhere, before we go have lunch with people somewhere, and make sure we understand what we're paying for and all that kind of stuff. Because it's just, sometimes it's easy to just forget the simple stuff like that. So it's a great reminder. All right. I'm also going to combine the next 2 and come back to Cameron, who I'm hoping is still here.
Yeah, can you still hear me?
Yeah.
We can. You're good, Cameron. So Cameron was clever enough to remind me that it's time to renew the fire district, the fireworks, open fires bans and all that kind of stuff. And then he said, maybe we should just pass an ordinance and just make it permanent instead of having this discussion every year about when can you start having, open fires and when can't you? Can we just put some dates down and decide that's the policy for the town? So I'm gonna let him take us through what he's done here, and then we can talk about vote.
Sure, thank you, Mayor. Can I share my screen because I had to reorganize a couple of things?
Sure.
Is that showing up okay?
It is.
Okay, so the only thing I added to this resolution is the date for the letter from the fire marshal. But what happens for the reason these two, one ordinance and one resolution are before you is because the state legislature has prohibited towns from restricting fireworks around the certain days around the 4 holidays, unless the town passes a resolution finding that there were hazardous environmental conditions in 2 out of the previous 5 years. And we have to pass that resolution and send it to the county before May 1st. And if we do that, then we can restrict fireworks all year round. In this case, at least during the summer. So that's what the resolution is for. And regardless of the other ordinance, the town is going to have to pass this resolution every year to restrict the fireworks because the legislature has made it impossible for us to just prohibit them outright. So we just, Polly and I have a reminder, and it'll come up in March or April every year, and we'll wash and repeat every year. And I guess if it turns into a tropical paradise at some point, we can reevaluate that. So this is
we have oceanfront property, you mean?
What's that?
So when we have oceanfront property.
Right. Yeah. So that's the resolution. It just gives the explanation of the state code that has a description of the hazardous environmental conditions and a finding by the fire marshal in the letter that's attached that there are hazardous conditions. I've moved the letter. It's actually the last page in the packet, but I've moved it as an attachment here to this ordinance. And then along with the resolution, we also have to publish a map of the area that's prohibited. So there's a nice map outlining the boundaries of the town. And then if it's passed, Alicia will send that to the county clerk, and then that will be complete. So I'm happy to answer questions on that if anybody has any.
Well, that helps me understand why we needed belt and suspenders. So thank you for that.
And so if there's no questions, the second one it really came from the discussion with the mayor about let's just restrict the open fires from May to November. And so that's what this second ordinance does, is just restrict it from May 1st through November 30th. It does still allow enclosed grills or gas fire pits as long as there's proper clearance from flammable materials. That's similar to what we did last year with the temporary measure that we did. So this just makes it permanent in the town code. And so from May 1st through the 30th, the open flame restrictions will exist every year. And then there's just that tiny little carve out for the fireworks for the resolution.
Does that mean there's, because I remember in years past, and there was some open burning that was happening down, maybe it was Deer Waters. So we would then be prohibiting the ability, we wouldn't even be able to issue a permit for open burning in May anymore.
No, I think if you had a permit, because the permit would require additional restrictions or limitations to it. And so I think the town could still issue a permit if there was something that a property owner wanted to do, but this is just a general restriction. And so they would have to come and get the town's permission to do that.
Okay, thank you.
So yeah, Chris, there are designated burn days from the fire district through, and you have to go to them for approval, and they have to look at wind and all that kind of stuff. And you have to provide standby and fire hose, and it has to be observed throughout the time and so forth. So it's a fairly tedious process, but it can be done if you have a big job that needs a burn.
Okay, thanks for explaining that.
And they also check, by the way, Chris, part of that is also they do the environmental, the air quality as well. So even if it's perfect day for burning, if the air quality doesn't allow it, then they wouldn't give a burn permit, even if it was no wind and 14 fire hoses standing by.
Good to know. Fortunately, our air quality is almost always good up here.
Yeah.
This does not include the Russ Creek parking area, does it?
No, no, I'm sorry. The state park is, although it's in the borders of Hideout, the state code overrules us. So
Okay.
there's no hunting in Hideout, but there's hunting in the state park, for example.
Okay,
And we can't stop
I
that.
did, it wasn't last summer, it was the summer before. I did look up my window one evening and there was a fire in the parking lot. And I wasn't sure what to do about it. I didn't do anything about it. I don't think it was a windy night, but I wondered, there were a bunch of kids there. There were a lot of cars there. And I think they just
So the
decided to do a
The
bonfire.
state park issues its own restrictions on fire burning in the state park. They have that posted as well. They pretty much mirror what we're doing. They don't want open fires either.
So is it appropriate to call it in? I mean, if you see,
Yeah,
see
it would
there,
have been appropriate to report it to not as a 911 call, but to the dispatch desk
right,
for the county, saying that you've observed open burning down at the state park.
okay.
So that's all I
Okay.
have, unless anybody has any other
Thank
questions.
you, Cameron. Well, I think you're good. I'm going to steal control back. So I'm going to, again, we're going to combine 9 and 10 in the approval process and look for a motion to adopt a resolution to be numbered yet by Alicia regarding restricting fireworks, and to adopt an ordinance, again, to be numbered by Alicia, amending chapter 6.08 for fireworks and ignition sources to restrict ignition sources from May to November.
So moved.
Is that Sherry?
That was Chris.
Time.
That was Chris? Sorry, when I'm looking at my notes, I'm not looking at the screen, so.
I'll second
I'm
it.
also not wearing my hearing aids, which my wife will be upset with. Okay, and I need a second.
Sherry seconded already.
Right.
Oh, okay. So I'm not wearing my hearing aids. I'm in trouble. Okay, Ralph, what say you?
Yes.
Thank you. Carol,
Yes.
Sherry,
Yes.
and Chris.
Yes.
Thank you. Okay. Fantastic job. I was afraid we were going to be here till 11, and here it is only 9:25. So that's not too bad. For us anyway, it's not too bad. Polly, is there anything that we need to go in exec for at this moment? Or are we pretty much in the same place we were the last couple of times you've talked with us?
I think we're generally in the same spot. I don't have anything in particular I need any input on, and so no, I don't think we need to, unless you have any questions for me about ongoing litigation.
I'll take silence as agreement, and we don't need to go in and talk about that right now. And so then I would look to say that we would have a motion to close the meeting and adjourn.
I'll move.
Thank
I'll
you,
second.
Carol. Thank you, Ralph. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Yes.
So thank you all for your attendance tonight, all your hard work. A lot of good work got has been done by a lot of folks for tonight's meeting. We covered a lot of stuff and made a lot of ground. So thanks to everybody for all the hard work on that. This is not easy stuff, and the team's doing, I mean, we covered a plethora of stuff. So well done and thanks.
Good night.
And
Okay, thanks all.
good night, everybody. We'll talk to you on May 4th.
Okay, bye.
Good night.
Bye-bye.